Act 1. Time, late afternoon, September, 1940s. Place, the living room of the old Brewster home in Brooklyn, New York. It is just as Victorian as the two sisters, Abby and Martha Brewster, who occupy the house with their nephew, Teddy. When the curtain rises, Abby Brewster, a plump little darling in her late 60s, is presiding at the tea table. The table is lighted by candles. Seated in the armchair at her left is the Reverend Dr. Harper, and on her right, standing, her nephew, Teddy, who's in his 40s and whose manner and makeup suggest Theodore Roosevelt.
Yes, indeed, my sister Martha and I have been talking all week about your sermon last Sunday. It's really wonderful, Dr. Harper. In only 2 short years, you've taken on the spirit of Brooklyn. You see, living here next to the church all our lives, we've seen so many ministers come and go. The spirit of Brooklyn, we always say, is friendliness. And your sermons are not so much sermons as friendly talks.
Personally, I've always enjoyed my talks with Cardinal Gibbons. Or have I met him yet?
Oh, no, dear, not yet. Are the biscuits good?
Bully.
Won't you have another biscuit, Dr. Harper?
Oh no, I'm afraid I'll have no appetite for dinner now. I always eat too many of your biscuits just to taste the lovely jam.
Oh, but you haven't tried the quince. We always put a little apple in with it to take the tartness out.
No, thank you.
We'll send you over a jar.
No, you keep it here so I can be sure of having your biscuits with it.
I do hope they don't make us use that imitation flour again. I mean, with this war trouble, it may not be very charitable of me, but I've almost come to the conclusion that this Mr. Hitler isn't a Christian.
If only Europe were on another planet.
Europe, sir.
Yes, Teddy.
Point your gun the other way.
Gun?
Teddy.
To the west, there's your danger, there's your enemy, Japan.
Why? Yes, of course.
Teddy.
No, Aunt Abby. Not so much talk about Europe and more about the canal.
Well, let's not talk about war. Will you have another cup of tea, dear?
No, thank you, Aunt Abby.
Dr. Harper?
No, thank you. I must admit, Miss Abby, that war and violence seems far removed from these surroundings.
Oh, it's peaceful here, isn't it?
Yes, peaceful. The virtues of another day. They're all here in this house. The gentle virtues that went out with candlelight and good manners and low taxes.
Oh, it's one of the oldest houses in Brooklyn. It's just as it was when Grandfather Brewster built and furnished it, except for the electricity, and we use it as little as possible. It was Mortimer who persuaded us to put it in.
Yes, I can understand that. Your nephew Mortimer seems to live only by electric light.
Oh, the poor boy has to work so late. I understand he's taking Elaine with him to the theater again tonight. Teddy, your brother Mortimer will be here a little later.
Delighted.
We're so happy. It's Elaine that Mortimer takes to the theater with him.
Well, it's hardly a new experience for me to wait up until 3 o'clock in the morning for my daughter to be brought home.
Oh, Mr. Harper, I hope you don't disapprove of Mortimer.
Well,
We'd feel so guilty if you did. Sister Martha and I mean, since it was here in our home that your daughter met Mortimer.
of course, Miss Abby. And so I'll say immediately that I believe Mortimer himself to be quite a worthy gentleman. But I also must admit that I have watched the growing intimacy between him and my daughter with some trepidation, for one reason, Miss Abby.
You mean his stomach, Mr. Harper?
Stomach?
He has dyspepsia, and he's bothered with it, so poor boy.
No, Miss Abby. I'll be frank with you. I'm speaking of your nephew's unfortunate connection with the theatre.
The theater? Oh, no. Dr. Harper, Mortimer writes for a New York newspaper.
I know, Miss Abby, I know, but such a dramatic critic is constantly exposed to the theatre, and I don't doubt but what some of them do develop an interest in it.
Well, not Mortimer. You have no fear for that. Why, Mortimer hates the theatre.
Really?
Oh, yes! He writes awful things about the theater. But you can't blame him, poor boy. He was so happy writing about real estate, which he really knew something about. And then they made him take this terrible night position.
My.
But as he says, the theater can't last much longer anyway, and in the meantime, it's a living. Ah, yes, I think if we give the theater another year or two, perhaps. Oh, now who do you suppose that is?
They all rise as Abby goes to the door. Teddy starts for the door at the same time, but Abby stops him.
Oh, no, thank you, Teddy, I'll go.
She opens the door to admit two cops, Officers Brophy and Klein.
Oh, come in, Mr. Brophy.
Hello, Miss Brewster.
How are you, Mr. Klein?
Very well, Miss Brewster.
The cops cross to Teddy and salute him. Teddy returns the salute.
What news have you brought me?
Colonel, we have nothing to report.
Splendid. Thank you, gentlemen. At ease.
The cops relax. Abby has closed the door and turns to the cops.
Oh, you know Dr. Harper?
Oh, sure. Hello, Dr. Harper.
We've come for the toys for the Christmas fund.
Oh, yes.
That's a splendid job you men do, fixing up discarded toys to give poor children a happier Christmas.
Well, it gives us something to do when we have to sit around the station. You get tired playing cards, then you start cleaning your gun, and the first thing you know, you've shot yourself in the foot.
Teddy, dear, go upstairs and get that box from your Aunt Martha's room.
Teddy heads for the stairs.
How is Mrs. Brophy today? Mrs. Brophy's being quite ill, Dr. Harper.
Pneumonia. I'm sorry to hear that.
Teddy has reached the first landing on the stairs, where he stops and draws an imaginary sword.
Charge!
He charges up the stairs. The others pay no attention to this.
Oh, she's better now, a little weak still.
Abby starts toward the kitchen.
I'm going to get you some beef broth to take her.
Oh, don't bother, Miss Abby. You've done so much for her already.
We made it this morning. Sister Martha's taking some to poor Mr. Bernisky right now. I won't be a minute. Sit down and be comfortable, all of you.
She exits into the kitchen.
She shouldn't go to all that trouble.
Oh, listen, trying to stop her or her sister from doing something nice. And for nothing. They don't even care how you vote.
When I received my call to Brooklyn and moved next door, my wife wasn't well. When she died, and for months before, well, if I know what pure kindness and absolute generosity are, it's because I've known the Brewster sisters.
Teddy steps out on the balcony and blows a bugle call. They all look.
Colonel, you promised not to do that.
But I have to call a cabinet meeting to get the release of those supplies.
He exits.
He used to do that in the middle of the night. The neighbors raised Cain with us. They were a little afraid of him, anyway. Oh, he's quite harmless.
I suppose he does think he's Teddy Roosevelt. There's a lot worse people he could think he was.
Damn shame. A nice family like this hatching a cuckoo.
Well, his father, the old girl's brother, was some sort of genius, wasn't he? And their father, Teddy's grandfather, seems to me I've heard he was a little crazy too.
Yeah, he was crazy like a fox. Made $1 million. Really? Here in Brooklyn? Yep. Patent machine. He was a kind of quack of some sort. Old Sergeant Edwards remembers him. He used to house here in a sort of clinic. Tried him out on people.
Yeah, I hear he used to make mistakes occasionally too.
The department never bothered him much because he was pretty useless pretty useful on autopsies sometimes, especially poison cases.
Well, whatever he did, he left his daughters fixed for life. Thank God for that.
Not that they ever spend any of it on themselves. Yes, I'm well acquainted with their charities.
You don't know a tenth of it. When I was with the Missing Persons Bureau, I was trying to trace an old man that we never did find. Do you know there's a renting agency that's got this house down on its list for furnished rooms? They don't rent rooms, but you can bet that anybody who comes here looking for a room goes away with a good meal and probably a few dollars in their kick.
It's just their way of digging up people to do good to.
The door opens.
Sorry, I forgot to hit pause. Unpause. The door opens and Martha Brewster enters. Martha is also a sweet elderly woman with Victorian charm. She is dressed in the old-fashioned manner of Abby, but with a high lace collar that covers her neck. The men all get to their feet.
Well, now, isn't this nice?
Good afternoon, Miss Brewster.
How do you do, Mr. Brophy, Dr. Harper, Mr. Klein?
How are you, Miss Brewster? We dropped in to get the Christmas toys.
Oh, yes, Teddy's Army and Navy, they wear out. They're all packed.
She turns to the stairs. Brophy stops her.
The Colonel's upstairs after them. It seems the Cabinet has to okay it.
Yes, of course. I hope Miss Brophy's better.
She's doing fine, ma'am. Your sister's getting some soup for her. Some soup for me to take to her.
Oh, yes, we made it this morning. I just took some to a poor man who broke ever so many bones.
Abby enters from the kitchen, carrying a covered pail.
Oh, you're back, Martha. How's poor Mr. Benitsky?
Well, dear, it's pretty serious, I'm afraid. The doctor was there. He's going to amputate in the morning.
Oh, can we be present?
No, I asked him, but he said it's against the rules of the hospital.
Teddy enters the balcony with a large cardboard box and comes downstairs.
You couldn't be of any service, and you must spare yourself something.
Here's the broth, Mr. Brophy, and be sure it's good and hot.
Yes, ma'am.
Klein crosses to where Teddy has placed the box on a stool.
Oh, this is fine. It'll make a lot of kids happy.
He lifts out a toy soldier.
That O'Malley boy is nuts about soldiers.
That's General Miles. I've retired him.
Klein pulls out a ship.
What's this? The Oregon?
Teddy, dear, put it back.
But the Oregon goes to Australia.
Now, Teddy.
No, I've given my word to Fighting Bob Evans.
But Teddy...
What's the difference what kid gets it? Bobby Evans, Izzy Cohen? Oh.
He heads toward the door with the box. Brophy follows.
We'll run along, Mum, and thank you very much.
Oh, not at all. Goodbye.
The cops stop in the doorway, salute Teddy, and exit.
I must be getting home.
Oh, before you go, Dr. Harper.
Charge!
Teddy dashes upstairs. At the top, he stops and with a sweeping gesture over the balcony rail, invites all to follow him.
Charge the doghouse!
He runs through a door, closing it after him. Harper looks after him.
The blockhouse?
The stairs are always San Juan Hill.
Have you ever tried to persuade him that he wasn't Teddy Roosevelt?
Oh, no.
He's so happy being Teddy Roosevelt.
Once, a long time ago, remember, Martha? We thought if he could be George Washington, it might be a change for him.
But he stayed under his bed for days and just wouldn't be anybody.
And we'd so much rather he be Mr. Roosevelt than nobody.
Well, if he's happy. And what's more important, you're happy. You'll see that he signs these.
Harper takes a blue-backed legal paper from his inside pocket.
What are they?
Oh, Dr. Harper, he's made all arrangements for Teddy to go to Happydale Sanitarium after we pass on.
But why should Teddy sign any papers now?
It's better to have it all settled. If the Lord should take you away suddenly, perhaps we couldn't persuade Teddy to commit himself, and that would mean an unpleasant legal procedure. Mr. Witherspoon understands they're to be filed away until the time comes to use them.
Mr. Witherspoon? Who's he?
He's the superintendent of Happydale.
Dr. Harper has arranged for him to drop in tomorrow or the next day to meet Teddy.
I'd better be running along, or Elaine will be over here looking for me.
Abby calls after him as he exits.
Oh, give our love to Elaine and Dr. Harper. Please, don't think too harshly of Mortimer because he's a dramatic critic. Somebody has to do these things.
Oh. Martha puts the legal papers on the sideboard and notices the tea things on the table.
Did you just have tea? Isn't it rather late?
Yes, and dinner's going to be late too.
So, why?
Teddy enters on the balcony and starts downstairs.
Teddy!
Teddy stops on the landing.
Good news for you! You're going to Panama and dig another lock for the canal.
Delighted. That's bully, just bully. I shall prepare at once for the journey.
He turns and starts back upstairs, then stops as if puzzled and hurries back to the landing.
Charge!
Teddy rushes up and off.
Abby! While I was out.
Yes, dear, I just couldn't wait for you. I didn't know when you'd be back, and Dr. Harper was coming.
Dear, all by yourself?
Oh, I got along fine.
I'll run right downstairs and see.
Oh, no, there wasn't time, and I was all alone.
Martha looks around the room.
Well,
Martha, just look in the window seat.
Martha almost skips to the window seat, and just as she gets there, a knock is heard. She stops, and they both look toward the door. Abby hurries to open it, and Elaine Harper enters. She is an attractive girl in her 20s and looks surprisingly smart for a minister's daughter.
Oh, it's Elaine. Come in, dear.
Good afternoon, Miss Abby. Good afternoon, Miss Martha. I thought Father was here.
he just this minute left. Didn't you meet him?
No, I took the shortcut through the cemetery. Mortimer hasn't come yet.
No, dear.
Oh, he asked me to meet him here. Do you mind if I wait?
Not at all.
Why don't you just sit down, dear?
But we really must speak to Mortimer about doing this to you.
Elaine sits at the table.
Doing what?
Well, he was brought up to know better. When a gentleman is taking a young lady out, he should call for her at her house.
Oh, there's something about calling for a girl at a parsonage that discourages any man who doesn't embroider.
He's done this too often. We're going to speak to him.
Oh, please don't. After young men whose idea of nightlife was to take me to prayer meeting, it's wonderful to go to the theatre almost every night of my life.
It's comforting for us, too, because if Mortimer has to see some of those plays he has to see, at least he's sitting next to a minister's daughter.
Abby starts putting the tea things on a tray. Elaine and Martha help.
My goodness, Elaine, what must you think of us not having tea cleared away by this time?
Now, don't bother with anything in the kitchen until Mortimer comes, and then I'll help you.
Abby picks up the tray and exits the kitchen. Elaine and Martha blow out the candles and take them to the sideboard.
Mortimer should be here any minute now.
Yes, Father must have been surprised not to find me at home. I'd better run over and say goodnight to him.
It's a shame you missed him, dear.
If Mortimer comes, you tell him I'll be right back.
She opens the door but sees Mortimer just outside.
Hello, Mort.
Mortimer Brewster walks in. He is a dramatic critic. As he passes her, he reaches back and pats Elaine on the fanny. That means bottom, that means the rear for those in the UK. Then embraces Martha.
Hello, Elaine. Hello, Aunt Martha.
Martha exits to the kitchen, calling as she goes.
Abby, Mortimer's here.
Elaine closes the door slowly.
Were you going somewhere?
I was just going over to tell Father not to wait up for me.
I didn't know that was still being done, even in Brooklyn.
Abby enters from the kitchen. Martha follows, staying in the doorway.
Hello, Mortimer.
Mortimer embraces and kisses her.
Hello, Aunt Abby.
How are you, dear?
All right, and you look well. You haven't changed much since yesterday.
Oh, my goodness, it was yesterday, wasn't it? We're seeing a great deal of you lately. Well, come, sit down, sit down.
Martha stops Abby from sitting.
Abby, haven't we something to do in the kitchen?
Huh?
You know, the tea things.
Oh, yes, yes, the tea things.
She backs toward the kitchen.
Well, you two just make yourselves at home,
Make yourselves at home.
They exit into the kitchen, Abby closing the door. Elaine steps toward Mortimer, ready to be kissed.
Well, can't you take a hint?
No, that was pretty obvious. A lack of inventiveness, I should say.
Yeah, that's exactly what you'd say.
Mortimer is at the desk, fishing out various pieces of notepaper from his pockets and separating dollar bills that are mixed in with papers.
Where do you want to go for dinner?
I don't care. I'm not very hungry.
Well, I just had breakfast. Suppose we wait until after the show.
Oh, but that'll make it pretty late, won't it?
Not with the little stinker we're seeing tonight. From what I've heard about it, we'll be at Blake's by 10 o'clock.
You know, you ought to be fair to these plays.
Are these plays fair to me?
I've never seen you walk out on a musical.
That musical isn't opening tonight.
No?
Darling, you'll have to learn the rules. With a musical, there are always 4 changes of title and 3 postponements. They liked it in New Haven, but it needs a lot of work.
Oh, I was hoping it'd be a musical.
You have such a light mind.
Not a bit. Musicals somehow have a humanizing effect on you, darling. After a serious play, we join the proletariat in the subway, and I listen to that lecture on the drama. After a musical, you bring me home in a taxi, and you make a few passes.
Now, wait a minute, darling. That's a very inaccurate piece of reporting.
Oh, I will admit that after the Behrman play, you told me I had authentic beauty, and that's a hell of a thing to say to a girl. It wasn't until after our first musical you told me I had nice legs, and I have too.
Mortimer stares at her legs for a moment, then walks over and kisses her.
For a minister's daughter, you know a lot about life. Where'd you learn it?
In the choir loft.
I'll explain that to you sometime, darling. The close connection between eroticism and religion.
Religion never gets as high as the choir loft.
She gathers her bag.
Which reminds me, I had better tell Father please not to wait up for me tonight.
I've never been able to rationalize it.
What?
My falling in love with a girl who lives in Brooklyn.
Falling in love? You're not stooping to the articulate, are you?
The only way I can regain my self-respect is to keep you in New York.
Did you say keep?
No. I've come to the conclusion that you're holding out for the legalities.
I can afford to be a good girl for quite a few years yet.
Mortimer embraces her.
And I can't wait long. Where could we be married in a hurry? Say tonight.
Oh, I'm afraid Father will insist on officiating.
Mortimer turns away from her.
Oh, God. I'll bet your father could make even the marriage service sound pedestrian.
Are you by any chance writing a review of it?
Forgive me, darling. It's an occupational disease.
She smiles at him lovingly, and they forget themselves for a moment in a sentimental embrace and kiss. When they come out of it, He turns away from her quickly.
I may give that play tonight a good notice.
Now, darling, don't pretend you love me that much.
Be sure to tell your father not to wait up tonight.
I think tonight I'd better tell him to wait up.
I'll telephone Wiltshire to publish the bans.
Nevertheless,
All right, everything's formal and legal, but not later than next month.
darling, I'll talk it over with father and set the date.
No, we'll have to see what's in rehearsal. There'll be a lot of other first nights in October.
Teddy enters from the balcony and comes downstairs, dressed in tropical clothes and a solar toupee. At the foot of the stairs, he sees Mortimer, crosses to shake his hand.
Hello, Mortimer.
How are you, Mr. President?
Bully, thank you. Just bully. And what news have you brought me?
Just this, Mr. President. The country is squarely behind you.
Yes, I know. Isn't it wonderful?
He shakes Mortimer's hand again.
Well, goodbye.
He crosses to Elaine and shakes her hand as well.
Goodbye.
Where are you off to, Teddy?
Panama.
He exits through the solo door, shutting it behind him. Elaine looks at Mortimer inquiringly.
Panama's the cellar. He digs locks for the canal down there.
You're so sweet with him. And he's very fond of you.
Well, Teddy was always my favorite brother.
Favorite? Were there more of you?
There's another brother, Jonathan.
I never heard of him. Your aunts never mention him.
No, we don't like to talk about Jonathan. He left Brooklyn very early, by request. Jonathan was the kind of boy who liked to cut worms in two with his teeth.
Oh, what became of him?
I don't know. He wanted to become a surgeon like grandfather, but he wouldn't go to medical school first, and his practice got him into trouble.
Abby enters from the kitchen.
Well, aren't you two going to be late for the theater?
Mortimer looks at his wristwatch.
We're skipping dinner. We won't have to start for half an hour.
Abby backs away.
Oh, well then, I'll leave you two alone together again.
Oh, don't bother, darling. I'm going to run over to speak to father.
She opens the door.
Before I go out with you, he likes to pray over me a little. I'll be right back. I'll cut through the cemetery.
If the prayer isn't too long, I'd have time to lead you beside distilled waters.
Elaine laughs. Elaine laughs and exits. Mortimer shuts the door.
Mortimer, that's the first time I've ever heard you quote the Bible. We knew Elaine would be a good influence on you.
Oh, by the way, I'm going to marry her.
What? Oh, darling!
She runs and embraces him, then calls toward the kitchen.
Martha! Martha!
Martha enters from the kitchen.
Come right in here. I've got the most wonderful news for you. Mortimer and Elaine are going to be married.
Married? Oh, Mortimer.
She runs over to Mortimer, who is looking out the window, and embraces him. Abby comes to his other side, and he puts his arms around both of them.
Oh, we hoped it would happen just like this.
Well, Elaine must be the happiest girl in the world.
Mortimer pulls back the curtain.
Happy? Just look at her leaping over those gravestones.
His attention is drawn to something out the window.
Say, what's that?
What's what, dear?
See that statue there? There's a Horindinia Carninia.
Oh, no, dear, that's Emma B. Stout ascending to heaven.
No. Standing on Mrs. Stout's left ear, that bird, that's a red-crested swallow. I've only seen one of those in my life before.
I don't know how you could be thinking about a bird now. What with the Elaine and the engagement and everything?
It's a vanishing species. Thorio was very fond of them.
He turns away from the window and crosses to the desk to look through various papers and drawers.
By the way, I left a large envelope around here. It was one of the chapters on my book on Thorio. Have you seen it?
Well, if you left it here, it must be here somewhere.
When are you going to be married? What are your plans? There must be something more you can tell us about Elaine.
Elaine. Oh, yes. Elaine thought it was brilliant.
He crosses to the sideboard and looks through the cupboards and drawers.
What was, dear?
My chapter on Thorio.
He finds a bundle of papers and brings them over to the table to look through them.
Well, when Elaine comes back, I think we ought to have a little celebration. We must drink to your happiness. Martha, isn't there some of that Lady Baltimore cake left?
Oh, yes.
And I'll open a bottle of wine.
Oh, and to think it happened in this room.
She exits the kitchen. Mortimer finishes looking through the papers and gazes around the room.
Now, where could I have put that?
Well, with your fiancé sitting beside you tonight, I do hope the play will be something you can enjoy for once. It may be something romantic. What's the name of it?
Murder Will Out.
Oh, oh dear.
She disappears into the kitchen. Mortimer continues talking as he keeps searching.
When the curtain goes up, the first thing you see will be a dead body.
He lifts the window seat and sees the body. Not believing it, he drops the seat again and wanders away, only to do a double take and go back to throw it open. He stares in, going slightly mad for a moment. As he backs away, he hears Abby humming on her way into the room. He drops the window seat again and holds it down. Abby enters carrying a silencer and a tablecloth, which she puts on an armchair, then picks up the bundle of papers and returns them to a drawer in the sideboard.
Aunt Abby,
Yes, dear.
you told me that you were going to make plans for Teddy to go to that sanitarium, Happy Dale.
Abby brings the legal papers to Mortimer from the
Yes, dear.
sideboard.
Yes, dear, it's all arranged. Dr. Hopper was here today and brought the papers for Teddy to sign. Here they are.
He takes the papers.
He's got to sign them right away.
Martha enters from the kitchen with silverware and plates on a tray. She sets the tray on the sideboard.
That's what Dr. Harper thinks. Then there won't be any legal difficulties after we pass on.
He's got to sign them this minute. He's down in the cellar. Get him up here right away.
There's no such hurry as that.
No, when Teddy starts working on the canal, you can't get his mind on anything else.
Teddy's got to go to Happy Dale now. Tonight.
Oh, no, dear. That's not until after we're gone.
Right away, I tell you. Right away.
Why, Mortimer, how can you say such a thing? Why, as long as we live, we'll never be separated from Teddy.
Listen, darlings, I'm frightfully sorry, but I've got some shocking news for you.
The aunts stop setting the table and look at him with some interest.
Now, we've all got to try and keep our heads. You know, we've sort of humoured Teddy because we thought he was harmless.
Why, he is harmless.
He was harmless. That's why he has to go to Happy Dale. Why he has to be confined.
Mortimer, why have you suddenly turned against Teddy, your own brother?
You've got to know sometime. It might as well be now. Teddy's killed a man.
Nonsense, dear.
Mortimer points to the window seat.
There's a body in that window seat.
Well, yes, dear, we know.
Abby and Martha busy themselves again at the table.
You know?
Of course, dear, but it has nothing to do with Teddy.
Now, Mortimer, just forget about it. Forget you ever saw the gentleman.
Forget?
Oh, we'd never dreamed you'd peek.
But who is he?
Oh, his name is Hoskins, Adam Hoskins. That's all I really know about him, except that he's a Methodist.
That's all you know about him. But what's he doing here? What happened to him?
He died.
Aunt Martha, men just don't get into window seats and die.
No, he died first.
Well, how?
Oh, Mortimer, don't be so inquisitive. The gentleman died because he drank some wine with poison in it.
How did the poison get in the wine?
Well, we put it in the wine because it's less noticeable. When it's in the tea, it has a distinct odor.
Mm-hmm.
You put it in the wine?
Yes! And I put Mr. Hoskins in the window seat because Dr. Harper was coming.
So you knew what you'd done. You didn't want Dr. Harper to see the body?
Well, not at tea. That wouldn't be very nice. Now, you know the whole thing, Mortimer. Just forget about it. I do think Martha and I have the right to our own little secrets.
And don't you tell Elaine. Oh, Abby, while I was out, I dropped in on Mrs. Schultz. She's much better, but she would like us to take Junior to the movies again.
Well, we must do that tomorrow or the next day.
Yes, but this time we'll go where we want to go. Junior's not going to drag me into another one of those scary pictures.
They exit into the kitchen as Mortimer looks after them. Abby shuts the door. Dazed, Mortimer looks around the room. His eyes come to rest on a phone on the desk. He crosses to it and dials a number.
City desk? Hello, Al. Do you know who this is? That's right. Say, Al, when I left the office, I told you where I was going, remember? Well, where did I say? Well, it should take me about half an hour to get to Brooklyn. What time have you got?
He looks at his watch.
That's right. I must be here.
He hangs up and sits for a moment, then suddenly leaps off his stool toward the kitchen.
Aunt Abby, Aunt Martha, come in here.
The two aunts bustle in. Martha has a tray with plates, cups, saucers, and soup cups.
What are we going to do? What are we going to do?
What are we going to do about what, dear?
There's a body in there.
Yes, Mr. Hoskins.
Well, good heavens. I can't turn you over to the police, but what am I going to do?
Well, for one thing, dear, stop being so excited.
And for pity's sake, stop worrying. We told you to forget the whole thing.
Forget? My dear Aunt Abby, can't I make you realize that something has to be done?
Now, Mortimer, you behave yourself. You're too old to be flying off the handle like this.
But Mr. Hotchkiss,
Hoskins, dear.
well, whatever his name was, you can't leave him there.
We don't intend to, dear.
No, Teddy's down in the cellar now digging the lock.
You mean you're going to bury Mr. Hotchkiss in the cellar?
Oh, yes, dear. That's what we did with the others.
No, you can't bury Mr. Others.
The other gentleman.
When you say others, do you mean others? More than one others?
Oh, yes, dear. Let me see. This makes 11, isn't it, Abby?
Oh, no, dear, this makes 12.
Mortimer backs away from them, stunned, towards the phone.
Oh, I think you're wrong, Abby. This is only 11.
No, dear, because I remember when Mr. Hotchkins first came in, it occurred to me he would make just an even dozen.
Well, you really shouldn't count the first one.
Oh, I was counting the first one, so that makes it 12.
The phone rings. Mortimer, in a daze, turns toward it and speaks without picking up the receiver.
Hello?
He realizes his error and picks up the receiver.
Hello? Oh, hello, Al. It's good to hear your voice.
Well, anyway, they're all down in the cellar.
Shh! Oh no, Al. I'm sober as a lark. I just called you because I was feeling a little pirandello. You wouldn't know. Al, look, I'm glad you called. Get a hold of George right away. He's got to review the play tonight. I can't make it. No, Al, you're wrong. I'll tell you all about it tomorrow. Well, George has got to cover the play tonight. This is my department. This is my department, and I'm running it. You get a hold of George.
He hangs up.
Now let's see. Where were we?
He suddenly leaps from the stool.
12?
Yes, Abby thinks we ought to count the first one, and that makes it 12.
Mhm.
Mortimer takes Martha by the hand, leads her to a chair, and sets her in it.
All right. Now, who was the first one?
Mr. Midgley. He was a Baptist.
Of course, I still think we can't claim full credit for him because he just died.
Martha means without any help from us. Oh, you see, Mr. Midgley came here looking for a room.
It was right after you moved to New York.
And it didn't seem right for that lovely room to be going to waste when there were so many people who needed it.
He was such a lonely old man.
Oh, his kith and kin were dead, and it left him so forlorn and unhappy.
We felt so sorry for him.
And then, when his heart attack came, and he sat dead in that chair, looking so peaceful, remember, Martha, we made up our minds then and there that if we could help other lonely men to the same peace, we would.
He dropped dead right in that chair? How awful of you!
Oh, no, dear. Why, it was rather like the old times. Your grandfather always used to have a cadaver or two around the house. You see, Teddy has been digging in Panama, and he thought Mr. Midgley was a yellow fever victim.
And that meant he had to be buried immediately.
So we all took him down to Panama and put him in the lock.
She puts her arm around Abby.
Now, that's why we told you not to worry about it, because we know exactly what's to be done.
And that's how all this started. That man walking in here and dropping dead.
Of course, we realized we couldn't depend on that happening again, so
You remember those jars of poison that have been up on the shelves in Grandfather's laboratory all those years?
you know your Aunt Martha's knack for mixing things. You've eaten enough of her piccalilli.
Well, dear, for 1 gallon of elderberry wine, I take 1 teaspoonful of arsenic, then add a half teaspoonful of strychnine, and then just a pinch of cyanide.
I should have quite a kick.
Yes, as a matter of fact, one of our gentlemen found time to say, "How delicious!"
Well, I'll have to get things started in the kitchen for supper.
Oh, I wish you could stay for dinner.
I'm trying out a new recipe.
I couldn't eat a thing.
Martha goes out to the kitchen. Abby calls after her.
Oh, I'll come help you, dear. Well, I feel so much better now. Oh, you have to wait for Elaine, don't you? Oh, how happy you must be. Well, dear, I'll leave you alone with your thoughts.
She exits. Mortimer crosses to the window seat, raises the cover, and looks in. Not believing, he lowers the cover, rubs his eyes, then raises it again. This time, he really sees Mr. Hoskins. He closes the seat hastily and closes the drapes over the window, then backs away to the table. He reaches to sip from a glass of overwater before remembering that poisoned wine comes in glasses and putting it down quickly. He crosses to the cellar door and opens it, but closes it with a bang as Elaine enters. Watching her put her bag down, it dawns on him that he knows her.
Oh, it's you.
Elaine takes his hand.
Don't be cross, darling. Father could see that I was excited, so I told him about us, and that made it hard for me to get away. But listen, darling, he's not going to wait up for me tonight.
You run along home, Elaine. I'll call you up tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow?
You, you know I always call you up every day or two.
But we're going to the theatre tonight.
No, we're not.
But, oh, why not?
Elaine, something's come up.
What, darling? Mortimer, you've lost your job.
No, I haven't lost my job. I'm just not covering that plate at night. Now, you run along home, Elaine.
But I've got to know what's happened. Certainly you can tell me.
No, dear, I can't.
But if we're going to be married, surely...
Married?
Have you forgotten that not 15 minutes ago you proposed to me?
I did. Oh, yes. Well, as far as I know, that's still on. Now run along home, Elaine. I've got to do something.
Now, listen, you can't propose to me 1 minute and throw me out of the house the next.
I'm not throwing you out of the house, darling. Will you get out of here?
And no, I won't get out of here. Not until I've had some kind of explanation.
Elaine is about to sit on the window seat. Mortimer grabs her by the hand. The phone rings. Ring, ring.
Elaine!
He goes to the phone, dragging Elaine with him.
Hello. Oh, hello, Al. Hold on a minute, will you? All right, it's important. But it can wait a minute, can't it? Hold on.
He puts the receiver on the desk, takes Elaine's bag and hands it to her, then leads her to the door and opens it.
Look, Elaine, you're a sweet girl, and I love you. But I have something on my mind now, and I want you to go home and wait until I call you.
Oh, don't try to be masterful.
When we're married and I have problems to face, I hope you'll be less tedious and uninspired.
And when we're married, if we're married, I hope I find you adequate.
She exits. Mortimer runs out on the porch after her.
Elaine! Elaine!
He runs back in, shuts the door, then crosses to the window seat to open the window. Suddenly, he remembers the contents of the seat and leaps off it. He dashes into the kitchen, but remembers Al's on the phone and runs over to it.
Hello, Al? Hello?
The doorbell rings. Ding dong. He thinks it's the phone. Abby enters from the kitchen.
Hello? Hello, Al?
She crosses to the door and opens it. Mr. Gibbs steps in the doorway. You're on mute, Abby. I understand you have a room to rent. Martha enters from the kitchen.
Are you the lady of the house?
Yes, I'm Miss Brewster, and this is my sister, another Miss Brewster.
My name is Gibbs.
Oh, won't you sit down? I am sorry, we were just setting the table for dinner.
Hello. Let me talk to Al again. City desk. Al! City desk! What? I'm sorry, wrong number.
He hangs up and starts dialing again as Gibbs looks at him. Gibbs turns to Abby.
May I see the room?
Why don't you sit down a minute and let's get acquainted?
That won't do much good if I don't like the room.
Well, is Brooklyn your home?
Haven't got a home. Live in a hotel. Don't like it.
Hello, city desk.
Are your family Brooklyn people?
Haven't got any family.
All alone in the world.
Yep.
Well, Martha.
Martha goes happily to the sideboard and retrieves a bottle of wine and a wine glass from the cupboard. Abby eases Gibbs into a chair at the table.
Well, you've come to just the right house. Do sit down.
Hello, Al? It's Mort. We got cut off. Al, I can't cover the play tonight. That's all there is to it. I can't.
What church do you go to? There's an Episcopal church practically next door.
She gestures towards the window and sits at the window seat.
I'm Presbyterian. Used to be.
What's George doing in Bermuda? Certainly, I told him he could go to Bermuda. It's my department, isn't it? Well, you've got to get somebody. Who else is there around the office?
Is there always this much noise?
Oh, he doesn't live with us.
There must be somebody around the plate. Look, Al, how about the office boy? You know, the bright one, the one we don't like. You look around the office, I'll hold on.
I'd really like to see the room.
It's upstairs, but won't you try a glass of our wine before we start up?
Never touch it.
No, we make it ourselves. It's elderberry wine.
Elderberry wine. Haven't tasted elderberry wine since I was a boy. Thank you.
Abby uncorks the bottle and starts to pour the wine.
Well, there must be some printers around. Look, Al, the fellow who sets my copy, he ought to know about what I'd write. His name is Joe. He's the third machine from the left, but Al, he might turn out to be another Burns Mantle.
Do you have your own elderberry bushes?
Oh no, but the cemetery is full of them.
No, I'm not drinking, but I'm going to start now.
Do you serve meals?
Oh, we might, but first, just see whether you like our wine.
Mortimer hangs up and comes to the table. Seeing the wine, he gets a glass and pours a drink for himself. Gibbs has his glass in hand and is getting ready to drink.
Mortimer!
Gibbs stops and looks at Martha. Mortimer pays no attention. As Mortimer raises the glass to his lips, Abby pulls his arm down.
Mortimer, not that.
Mortimer, still dumb, puts his glass down. Then he sees that Gibbs is about to drink and points across the table at him, giving a wild cry. Gibbs looks at him as Mortimer goes around the table to approach him. Seeing a madman, Gibbs rises slowly and backs away, then turns and runs for the exit, Mortimer following him. When Gibbs is gone, Mortimer closes the door and leans against it in exhausted relief.
Well, now you've spoiled everything.
You can't do things like that. I don't know how to explain this to you, but it's not only against the law, it's wrong. It's not a nice thing to do. People wouldn't understand. He wouldn't understand.
Abby, we shouldn't have told Mortimer.
What I mean is, well, this has developed into a very bad habit.
Mortimer, we don't try to stop you from doing things you like to do. I don't see why you should interfere with us.
The phone rings. Bring, bring. Mortimer answers.
Hello? It's Al again. All right. I'll see the first act and I'll pan the hell out of it. But look, Al, you've got to do something for me. Get a hold of O'Brien, our lawyer, the head of our legal department. Have him meet me at the theatre. Don't let me down, okay? I'm starting now.
He hangs up and turns to the aunts.
Look, I've got to go to the theatre. I can't get out of it. But before I go, will you promise me something?
We'd have to know what it was first.
I love you very much, and I know you love me. You know I'd do anything in the world for you, and I want you to do just this one little thing for me.
What do you want us to do?
Don't do anything. I mean, don't do anything. Don't let anyone in this house, and leave Mr. Hoskins right where he is.
Why?
I want time to think, and I've got quite a little to think about. You know I wouldn't want anything to happen to you.
What on earth could happen to us?
Anyway, you'll do this for me, won't you?
Well, we were planning on holding services before dinner.
Services?
Certainly. You don't think we'd bury Mr. Hoskins without a full Methodist service, do you? Why, he was a Methodist.
But can't that wait till I get back?
Oh, then you could join us.
Yes, yes.
Oh, Mortimer, you'll enjoy the services. Oh, especially the hymns. Remember, Martha, how beautifully Mortimer used to sing in the choir before his voice changed.
And remember, you're not going to let anyone in this house while I'm gone. It's a promise.
Well,
Oh, Martha, we can do that now that Mortimer's cooperating with us. Well, all right, Mortimer.
Mortimer heaves a sigh of relief. He gets his hat and starts toward the door, then stops and pulls legal papers from his coat pocket.
Have you got some paper? I'll get back just as soon as I can. There's a man I've got to see.
Abby fetches some stationery from the desk and hands it to Mortimer.
Now, here's some stationery. Will this do?
Oh, that'll be fine. I can save time if I might write my review on the way to the theatre.
He takes the stationery and exits. The aunts stare after him. They go to the sideboard and retrieve 2 candelabras, which they bring to the table to light.
Mortimer didn't seem quite himself today.
Well, that's only natural. I think I know why.
Why?
Well, he's just become engaged to be married. I suppose that always makes a man nervous.
Well, I'm so happy for Elaine, and their honeymoon ought to give Mortimer a real vacation. I don't think he got much rest this summer.
Well, at least he didn't go kiting off to China or Spain.
I could never understand why he wanted to go to those places.
Well, I think to Mortimer, the theater has always seemed a pretty small potatoes. He needs something big to criticize. Something like the human race.
Oh, Abby, if Mortimer's coming back for the services for Mr. Hoskins, we'll need another hymnal. There's one in my room.
You know, dear, it's really my turn to read the services, but since you weren't here when Mr. Hoskins came, I want you to do it.
That's very nice of you, dear. But are you sure you want me to?
It's only fair.
Well, I think I'll wear my black bombazine and Mother's old brooch.
He starts upstairs. The doorbell rings.
I'll go, dear.
We promised Mortimer we wouldn't let anyone in.
Abby tries to peer through the curtained window in the door.
Oh, who do you suppose it is?
Wait a minute, I'll look.
She peers through the curtains of the landing window.
It's 2 men, and I've never seen them before.
Are you sure?
There's a car at the curb. They must have come in that.
Oh, let me look.
She hurries up the stairs and peeks out the curtain. There's a knock at the door.
Do you recognize them?
Oh, they're strangers to me.
We'll just have to pretend we're not at home.
The 2 of them huddle back in the corner of the landing. Another knock at the door. And then the knob turns and it swings slowly open. A tall man walks in, looking about the room. He moves with assurance and ease, as though the room were familiar to him, in every direction but that of the stairs. There's something sinister about the man, something that brings a slight chill in his presence. It is in his walk, his bearing, and his strange resemblance to Boris Karloff. Abby and Martha watch him from the stair landing. Having completed his survey of the room, the man turns and addresses someone outside the door.
Come in, doctor.
Dr. Einstein enters. He is someone ratty in appearance. His face wears the benevolent smirk of a man who lives in a pleasant haze of alcohol. There's something about him that suggests the unfrocked priest. He stands just inside the door, timid but expectant.
This is the home of my youth. As a boy, I couldn't wait to escape from this place. Now I'm glad to escape back into it.
Einstein shuts the door.
Yeah, Johnny, it's a fine hideout.
The family must still live here. There's something so unmistakably Brewster about the Brewsters. I hope there's fatted calf awaiting the return of the prodigal.
Yeah, I'm hungry.
He spots the 2 glasses of wine on the table.
Look, Johnny, drinks?
He runs over to the table. Jonathan follows.
As though we were expecting. A good omen.
They raise their glasses to their lips as Abby steps down a couple of stairs and speaks.
Who are you, and what are you doing here?
They both put the glasses down.
Why, Aunt Abby! Aunt Martha! It's Jonathan!
You get out of here!
Jonathan approaches her.
I'm Jonathan. Your nephew, Jonathan.
Oh, no, you're not. You're nothing like Jonathan, so don't pretend you are. You just get out of here.
But I am Jonathan. And this is Dr. Einstein.
And he's not Dr. Einstein either.
Not Dr. Albert Einstein. Dr. Herman Einstein.
Who are you? You are not our nephew, Jonathan.
Jonathan peers at Abby's hand.
I see you're still wearing that lovely garnet ring that Grandma Brewster bought in England. And you, Aunt Martha, still the high collar. To hide the scar where grandfather's acid burned you.
Abby gasps and looks at the ring. Martha's hand goes to her throat.
His voice is like Jonathan's.
Have you been in an accident?
No. My face. Dr. Einstein is responsible for that. He's a plastic surgeon. He changes people's faces.
But I've seen that face before. Abby, remember when we took the little Schultz boy to the movies? I was so frightened. It was that face.
Jonathan grows tense and looks toward Einstein.
Easy, Johnny, easy. Now, don't worry, ladies. The last 5 years, I give Johnny 3 new faces. I give him another one right away. This last one, well, I saw that picture too, just before I operate, and I was intoxicated.
Jonathan walks toward Einstein, who backs away.
You see, Doctor? You see what you've done to me? Even my own family?
Johnny, you're home, in this lovely house.
He addresses the aunts.
How often he tells me about Brooklyn, about this house, about his aunts that he loves so much. They know you, Johnny.
He turns to Abby.
You know it's Jonathan. Speak to him. Tell him so.
Well, Jonathan, it's been a long time. What have you been doing all these years?
Yes, Jonathan. Where have you been?
Oh, England, South Africa, Australia. The last 5 years, Chicago. Dr. Einstein and I were in business there together.
Oh, we were in Chicago for the World's Fair.
Yes, we found Chicago awfully warm.
Yeah, it got hot for us too.
Well, it's wonderful to be in Brooklyn again. And you, Abby, Martha, you don't look a day older. Just as I remembered you. Sweet, charming, hospitable. And dear Teddy, I remember him so high. Did he get into politics? You know, Doctor, my little brother was determined to become president.
Oh, Teddy's fine, just fine. And Mortimer's well, too.
I know about Mortimer. I've seen his picture at the head of his column. He's evidently fulfilled all the promise of his early nasty nature.
Oh, we're very fond of Mortimer.
A slight pause, then Martha gestures toward the door.
Well, Jonathan, it's very nice to have seen you again.
Bless you, Aunt Martha. It's good to be home again.
He sits down. The aunts look at each other with dismay.
Well, Martha, we mustn't let what's on the stove boil over.
She starts to the kitchen, then comes back when she sees that Martha isn't following.
Yes, if you'll excuse us, Jonathan, unless you're in a hurry to go somewhere.
Jonathan looks at her balefully. Martha takes the bottle of wine and puts it back in the sideboard, then exits with Abby, who closes the door after them.
Well, Johnny, where do we go from here? We got to think fast. The police have pictures of that face. I got to operate on you right away. We got to find some place for that, and I got to find a space for Mr. Spinalza too.
Don't waste any worry on that rat.
But Johnny, we got a hot Steve on our hands.
Forget Mr. Spinalzo.
You can't leave a dead body in the rumble seat. You shouldn't have killed him. He's a nice fellow. He gives us a lift, and what happens?
said I looked like Boris Karloff. That's your work, Doctor. You did that to me.
He starts toward Einstein, who backs away.
Now, Johnny, we find a place somewhere. I fix you up quick.
Tonight.
Johnny, I got to eat first. I'm hungry. I'm weak.
The aunts re-enter from the kitchen.
Jonathan, we're glad you remembered us and took the trouble to come in and say hello. But you were never happy in this house. And we were never happy while you were in it. So we've just come in to say goodbye.
Aunt Abby, I can't say that your feeling toward me comes as a surprise. I've spent a great many hours regretting the many heartaches I must have given you as a boy.
You were quite a trial to us, Jonathan.
But my great disappointment is for Dr. Einstein. I promised him that no matter how rushed we were in passing through Brooklyn, I'd take the time to bring him here for one of our Aunt Martha's home-cooked dinners.
Oh.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm afraid there wouldn't be enough.
Oh, Abby, it's a pretty good-sized pot roast.
Pot roast?
I think the least we can do is...
Thank you, Aunt Martha. We'll stay to dinner.
Well, hurry it along.
Yes.
Oh, Jonathan, if you want to freshen up, why don't you just use the washroom in grandfather's old laboratory?
Is that still there?
Oh, yes, just as he left it. Well, I'll help Martha get things started, since we're all in a hurry.
The aunts exit to the kitchen.
Well, we get a meal anyway.
Grandfather's laboratory. And just as it was, Doctor, a perfect operating room.
Too bad we can't use it.
After you're finished with me, why, we could make a fortune here. The laboratory, that large ward in the attic, 10 beds, Doctor. And Brooklyn is crying for your talents.
Why walk yourself up, Johnny? Anyway, for Brooklyn, I think we're a year too late.
You don't know this town, Doctor. Practically everybody in Brooklyn needs a new face.
But so many of the old faces are locked up.
A very small percentage. And the boys in Brooklyn are famous for paying generously to stay out of jail.
Take it easy, Johnny. Your aunts, they don't want us here.
We're here for dinner, aren't we?
Yeah, but after dinner.
Leave it to me, Doctor. I'll handle it. Why, this house will be our headquarters for years.
Oh, that would be beautiful, Johnny. This nice, quiet house, and those aunts of yours, what sweet ladies. I love them already. I get... Yeah?
Doctor, you must wait till we're invited.
But you just said that.
We'll be invited.
And if they say no?
Doctor, two helpless old ladies?
He sits on the sofa. Einstein takes a flask from his hip pocket and unscrews the cork as he crosses to the window seat.
It is like comes through a beautiful dream. Only I hope you're not dreaming.
He stretches out on the window seat and takes a swig from the bottle.
It's so peaceful.
That's what makes this house so perfect for us. It's so peaceful.
Teddy enters from the cellar and blows a terrific blast on his bugle. Ba-ba-da-ba! He marches to the stairs and up to the landing as the two men look at his tropical garb with some astonishment.
Charge!
He rushes up the stairs and off. Jonathan watches him from the foot of the stairs. Einstein, sitting on the window seat, takes a hasty swig from his flask as the curtain comes down. Arsenic and Old Lace, Act 2. Scene: the same. Later that night. Jonathan, with an after-dinner cigar, is occupying the armchair of the table, completely at his ease. Abby and Martha, seated on the window seat, are giving him a nervous attention in the attitude of people who wish their guests would go home. Einstein is relaxed and happy in his chair at the table. Dinner dishes have been cleared. There is a red cloth on the table with a saucer to serve as an ashtray for Jonathan. The room is in order. All doors are closed, as are the drapes over the windows.
Yes, aunties, those 5 years in Chicago were among the busiest and happiest of my life.
And from Chicago, we go to South Bend, Indiana.
They wouldn't be interested in our experience in Indiana.
Well, Jonathan, you've led a very interesting life, I'm sure. But we really shouldn't have allowed you to talk so late.
She starts to rise. Jonathan seats her by just the tone of his voice.
My meeting Dr. Einstein in London, I might say, changed the whole course of my life. You remember I had been in South Africa in the diamond business. Then Amsterdam, the diamond market. I wanted to go back to South Africa, and Dr. Einstein made it possible for me.
A good job, Johnny. When we take off the bandages, his face looks so different, and yours had to introduce me.
I love that face. I still carry the picture with me.
He produces a snapshot picture, a snapshot-sized picture from inside his coat pocket, looks at it a moment, and then hands it to Martha. She looks at it and hands it to Abby.
Well, this looks more the way you used to look, but I still wouldn't know you.
I think we'll go back to that face, Doctor.
Yeah, it's safe now.
Well, I know you both want to get to where you're going.
My dear aunts, I'm so full of that delicious dinner, I'm unable to move a muscle.
Yeah, it's nice here.
After all, it's very late and.
Teddy enters on balcony wearing his solar toupee, carrying a book open and another toupee.
I found it! I found it!
What did you find, Teddy?
The story of my life. My biography.
He crosses above
Here's
to
the
Einstein.
picture I was telling you about, General.
He lays open the book on the table, showing the picture to Einstein.
Here we are, both of us. President Roosevelt and General Goethals and Culebra Cat. That's me, General. And that's you.
Einstein looks
My,
at picture.
how I've changed.
Teddy looks at Einstein, a little puzzled, but makes adjustment.
Well, you see, that picture hasn't been taken yet. We haven't even started work on Clever Cat. We're still digging locks. And now, General, we will both go to Panama and inspect the new lock.
Hands him the hat.
No, no, Teddy, not to Panama.
We go some other time. Panama's a long way off.
Nonsense, it's just down in the cellar.
The cellar.
We let him dig the Panama Canal in the cellar.
General Goethals, as President of the United States, Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, and the man who gave you this job, I demand that you accompany me on the inspection of the new lock.
Teddy, I think it's time you went to bed.
I beg your pardon.
He crosses above to Jonathan, putting on his pince-nez as he crosses.
Who are you?
I'm Woodrow Wilson. Go to bed.
No. 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 You're not Wilson. But your face is familiar. Let me see. You're not anyone I know now. Perhaps later. On my hunting trip to Africa. Yes, you look like someone I might meet in the jungle.
Jonathan stiffens. Abby crosses in front of Teddy, getting between him and Jonathan.
It's your brother, Jonathan, dear.
He's had his face changed.
So that's it. A nature faker.
And perhaps you better go to bed, Teddy. Jonathan and his friend have to go back to their hotel.
General Goethals, inspect the canal.
All right, Mr. President, we go to Panama.
Bully.
He crosses to the cellar door and opens it.
Follow me, General.
Einstein goes up to Teddy. Teddy taps the hat in Einstein's hand and taps his own head. It's down sorry.
It's down south, you know.
He exits downstairs. Einstein puts on the hat, which is too large for him, then turns in cellar doorway and speaks.
Well, bon voyage.
He exits, closing door.
Aunt Abby, I must correct your misapprehension. You spoke of our hotel. We have no hotel. We came directly here.
Well, there's a very nice little hotel just 3 blocks down the.
Aunt Martha, this is my home.
But Jonathan, you can't stay here. We need our rooms.
You need them?
Yes, for our lodgers.
Are there lodgers in this house?
Well, not just now, but we plan to have some.
Then my old room is still free.
But Jonathan, there's no place for Dr. Einstein.
Jonathan
share-
crosses to below table and drops cigar ashes into the saucer.
He'll share the room with me.
No, Jonathan, I'm afraid you can't stay here.
Jonathan is below table, as in on the other side. He grinds cigar out in saucer, then starts toward aunts. They back around above table to the corner. Martha first. Jonathan turns back and crosses below the table to Abby at the other corner.
Dr. Einstein and I need a place to sleep. You remembered this afternoon that as a boy I could be disagreeable. It wouldn't be very pleasant for any of us if.
Perhaps we'd better let them stay here tonight.
Well, just overnight, Jonathan.
That's settled. Now, if you'll get my room ready.
It only needs airing out.
We keep it ready to show our lodgers. I think you and Dr. Einstein will find it comfortable.
Jonathan follows them to the first landing and leans on newel post. Aunts are on balcony.
You have a most distinguished guest in Dr. Einstein. I'm afraid you don't appreciate his skill. But you will. In a few weeks, you'll see me looking like a very different Jonathan.
He can't operate on you here.
And Dr. Einstein and I get organized when we resume practice. Oh, I forgot to tell you. We're turning Grandfather's laboratory into an operating room. We expect to be quite busy.
Jonathan, we will not let you turn this house into a hospital.
Hospital. Heavens, no. It will be a beauty parlor.
Einstein enters excitedly from the cellar.
Hey, Johnny, down in the cellar.
Dr. Einstein, my dear aunts have invited us to live with them.
Oh, you fixed it.
Well, you're sleeping here tonight.
Please get our room ready immediately.
Well,
For tonight.
They exit through the arch. Jonathan comes to the foot of the stairs.
Johnny, when I go down in the cellar, what do you think I find?
What?
The Panama Canal.
The Panama Canal.
It just fits Mr. Spinalza. It's a whole teddy dog, 6 feet long, 4 feet wide.
Down there.
You'd think they knew we were bringing Mr. Spinalza along. That's hospitality.
Rather a good joke on my aunts. They're living in a house with a body buried in the cellar.
How do we get him in?
Yes, we can't just walk him through the door. We'll drive the car up between the house and the cemetery. Then when they've gone to bed, we'll bring Mr. Spinalza in through the window.
Bed? Just think, we've got a bed tonight.
Easy, Doctor. Remember, you're operating tomorrow, and this time you'd better be sober.
I fix you up beautiful.
And if you don't...
Gives Einstein a shove to the door.
I forgot my... Jonathan, your room is ready.
Then you can go to bed. We're moving the car up behind the house.
it's all right where it is until morning.
I don't want to leave it in the street. That might be against the law.
He exits. Einstein follows him out, closing the door. Abby and Martha start downstairs and reach below table.
Abby, what are we going to do?
Well, we're not going to let them stay more than one night in this house, for one thing. What would the neighbors think? People coming in here with one face and going out with another.
What are we going to do about Mr. Hoskins?
Oh, Mr. Hoskins. It can't be very comfortable for him in there. And he's been so patient, the poor dear. Well, I think Teddy had better get Mr. Hoskins downstairs right away.
Abby, I will not invite Jonathan to the funeral services.
Oh, no. We'll wait until they've gone to bed and then come down and hold the services.
Teddy enters from the cellar, gets book from table, and starts. Abby stops him.
General Gathels was very pleased. He says the canal is just the right size.
Teddy! Teddy, there's been another yellow fever victim.
Dear me, this will be a shock to the general.
Then we mustn't tell him about it.
But it's his department.
No, we mustn't tell him, Teddy. It would just spoil his visit.
No, I'm sorry, Aunt Abby. It's out of my hands. He'll have to be told. Army regulations, you know.
No, Teddy, we must keep it a secret.
Yes.
A state secret.
Yes, a state secret.
Promise.
You have the word of the President of the United States. Cross my heart and hope to die. Now, let's see. How are we going to keep it a secret?
Well, Teddy, you go back down in the cellar, and when I turn out the lights when it's all dark, you come up and take the poor man down to the canal. Now, go along, Teddy.
And we'll come down later and hold the services.
You may announce the President will say a few words. Where is the poor devil?
He's in the window seat.
It seems to be spreading. We've never had yellow fever there before.
Martha, when Jonathan and Dr. Einstein comes back, Let's see if we can get them to go to bed right away.
Yes. Then by the time they're asleep, we'll be dressed for the funeral. Abby, I've never even seen Mr. Hoskins.
Oh, oh my goodness, that's right, you were out. Oh, well, you just come right over here and see him now. He's really very nice looking, considering he's a Methodist.
As they go to lift the window seat, Jonathan throws the window open from the outside with a bang. The aunts scream and draw back. Jonathan puts his head in through the drapes.
We're bringing the luggage through here.
Jonathan, your room's waiting for you. You can go right up.
2 dusty bags and a large instrument case are passed through the window by Einstein. Jonathan puts them on the floor.
I'm afraid we don't keep Brooklyn hours, but you two run along to bed.
Now you must be very tired, both of you. And we don't go to bed this early.
Well, you should. It's time I came home to take care of you.
We weren't planning to go until,
Aunt Martha, did you hear me say, go to bed?
Martha starts upstairs as Einstein comes in through the window and picks up 2 bags. Jonathan takes instrument case and puts it in the front of the window seat.
The instruments can go into the laboratory in the morning.
Einstein starts upstairs. Jonathan closes the window. Martha is partway upstairs as Einstein passes her. Abby is at the right corner.
Now, then, we're all going to bed.
He crosses as Abby goes to turn off the light switch.
I'll wait till you're up, then turn out the lights.
Jonathan, going upstairs, sees Einstein pausing at balcony door. Martha is almost up to the balcony.
Another flight, Doctor. Run along, and Martha.
Martha hurries into the doorway. Einstein goes through arch to 3rd floor. Jonathan continues on to the end of the balcony. Abby is still at the light switch.
All right, Aunt Abby.
Abby,
I'll be right up.
Now, Aunt Abby, turn out the lights.
Abby turns a switch, plunging the stage into darkness, except for a spot shining down stairway from arch. Abby goes upstairs to her door where Martha is waiting. She takes a last frightened look at Jonathan and exits. Martha closes door. Jonathan goes off through arch, closing that door, blotting out the spot. Street light shines through main door on stage floor. Teddy opens cellar door, then turns on cellar light, outlining him in doorway. He crosses to window seat and opens it, the window seat cover giving out its usual rusty squeak. He reaches in and pulls Mr. Hoskins out of it. He gets Mr. Hoskins over his shoulder and, leaving window seat open, crosses to cellar door and goes down into cellar with Mr. Hoskins. Closes door. Jonathan and Einstein come through arch. It is dark. They light matches and listen at the aunt's door for a moment.
All right, Johnny.
The matches go out. Jonathan lights another, and they come down to the foot of the stairs.
I'll get the window open. You go around and hand him through.
No, he's too heavy for me. You go outside and push. I stay here and pull. And together we get him down to Panama.
All right.
He blows out match.
I'll take a look around outside the house. When I tap on the glass, you open the window.
All right.
Jonathan exits, closing the door. Einstein lights match and crosses. He bumps into the table and the match goes out. He feels his way from there. We hear ejaculations and noise. Einstein has fallen into the window seat. In window seat, he lights another match and slowly rises up into a sitting position and looks around. He blows out match and hauls himself out of the window seat, speaking.
Who left this open? Dummkopf.
We hear the creak of the cover as he closes it. In the darkness, we hear a tap on the window. Einstein opens it. Then, in a hushed voice.
Johnny? Okay, Alice up. Wait a minute. You lost a leg somewhere? Ah, now I got him. Come on.
He falls on the floor, and there is a crash of a body and the sound of from outside.
That was me, Johnny. I slipped.
Be more careful.
Well, he sure came off. Alright, Johnny, I got him.
Sorry. A second knock at door. A moment's silence, and we hear the creak of a window seat as Einstein puts Mr. Spinello in Mr. Hoskins' place. A third knock as Einstein struggles with the body. A fourth knock, and then the creak of the window seat as Einstein closes it. He scurries around to beside the desk, keeping low to avoid being seen through the door. Elaine enters, calling softly.
Miss Abby, Miss Martha.
In the dim path of the light, she comes toward, calling toward balcony.
Miss Abby, Miss Martha.
Suddenly, Jonathan steps through the door and closes it. The noise swings Elaine around and she gasps.
Who is it? Is that you, Teddy?
Jonathan comes toward her as she backs into the chair of the table.
Who are you?
Who are you?
I'm Elaine Harper. I live next door.
And what are you doing here?
I came over to see Miss Abby and Miss Martha.
Turn on the lights,
Einstein.
Doctor.
The lights go on. Elaine gasps as she sees Jonathan and sits in chair.
You chose rather an untimely moment for a social call.
He crosses toward the window seat, looking for Spinello, but doesn't see him. He looks up behind table, looks out window, then comes back into the room.
I think you'd better explain what you're doing here.
We happen to live here.
You don't live here. I'm in this house every day, and I've never seen you before. Where are Miss Abby and Miss Martha? What have you done to them?
Perhaps we'd better introduce ourselves. This is Dr. Einstein.
Dr. Einstein?
It turns back to Jonathan. Einstein, behind her back, is gesturing to Jonathan the whereabouts of Spinello.
A surgeon of great distinction.
He looks under the table for Spinello and doesn't find him.
And something of a magician.
And I suppose you're going to tell me you're Boris Karkov?
I'm Jonathan Brewster.
Oh, you're Jonathan.
I see you've heard of me.
Einstein drifts to the front of sofa.
Yes, just this afternoon for the first time.
And what did they say about me?
Only that there was another brother named Jonathan. That's all that was said. Well, that explains everything. Now that I know who you are...
He runs to the door.
I'll be running along back home.
The door is locked.
If you'll kindly unlock the door.
Jonathan crosses to her then. Before reaching her, he turns to the door and unlocks it. Einstein drifts down to the chair of the table. As Jonathan opens the door part way, Elaine starts towards it. He turns and stops her with a gesture.
That explains everything? Just what did you mean by that? Why did you come here at this time of night?
I thought I saw someone prowling around the house. I suppose it was you.
Jonathan closes the door and locks it, leaving the key in the lock.
You thought you saw someone prowling around the house.
Yes, weren't you outside? Isn't that your car?
You saw someone at the car?
Yes.
Coming towards her as she backs up.
What else did you see?
Just someone walking around the house to the car.
What else did you see?
Just that's all. That's why I came over here. I wanted to tell Miss Abby to call the police. But if it was you and that's your car, I don't need to bother Miss Abby. I'll be running along.
She takes a step towards the door. He steps in her path.
What was the man doing at the car?
I don't know. You see, I was on my way over here.
Forcing her as she backs up.
I think you're lying.
I think she tells the truth, Johnny. We'll let her go now, huh?
Still forcing her back.
I think she's lying. Breaking into a house this time of night, I think she's dangerous. She shouldn't be around. She shouldn't be allowed around loose.
He seizes Elaine's arm.
Ah! Take your hands off me!
Doctor!
As Einstein starts, Teddy enters from the cellar, shutting the door. He looks at Jonathan, then speaks to Einstein.
It's going to be a private funeral.
He goes up to the stairs to the first landing. Elaine crosses to desk, dragging Jonathan with her.
Teddy, tell these men who I am.
Teddy turns and looks at her.
That's my daughter, Alice.
He dashes up the stairs and exits.
No, Teddy!
Jonathan has Elaine's arm twisted in the back of her. His other hand is over her mouth.
Doctor, your handkerchief.
As Einstein hands him a handkerchief, Jonathan releases his hand from Elaine's mouth to take it. She screams. He puts his hand over her mouth again, spies the cellar door, and speaks to Einstein.
The cellar!
Einstein runs and opens the cellar door. The cellar light is on. Then he runs back and turns off the light switch, putting stage in darkness. Jonathan pushes Elaine through cellar doorway. Einstein runs back and down cellar stairs with Elaine. Jonathan shuts the door, remaining on stage as the aunts enter on balcony above in their mourning clothes. Everything is in complete darkness except for the street lamp.
What's the matter?
Martha shuts her door and Abby puts on lights from switch on balcony. They look down at the room for a moment, then come downstairs, speaking as they come.
What's the matter?
Reaching the foot of the stairs as she sees Jonathan.
What are you doing?
We caught a burglar, a sneak thief. Go back to your room.
Oh, we'll call the police.
We've called the police. We'll handle this. Go back to your room, you hear me?
The doorbell rings, bing bong, followed by several knocks. Abby runs and opens the door. Mortimer enters with suitcase. At the same time, Elaine runs out of cellar and into Mortimer's arms. Jonathan makes a grab for Elaine but misses. This leaves him open, I guess. Einstein sneaks behind Jonathan.
Mortimer, where have you been?
To the North Base Theatre, and I should have known better. My God, I'm still there.
This is your brother, Jonathan. And this is Dr. Einstein.
Mortimer surveys his aunts, all dressed in black.
I know this isn't a nightmare. What is it?
I've come back home, Mortimer.
Who did you say this was?
It's your brother, Jonathan. He's had his face changed. Dr. Einstein performed the operation.
Jonathan. Jonathan, you always were a horror, but you have to look like one.
Jonathan takes a step toward him. Jonathan pulls on his sleeve. Elaine and Martha draw back to the desk.
Easy, Johnny, easy.
Mortimer, have you forgotten the things I used to do to you when we were boys? Remember the time you were tied to the bedpost? The needles under your fingernails?
By God, it is Jonathan. Yes, I remember. I remember you as the most detestable, vicious, venomous form of animal life I ever knew.
Jonathan grows tense. Abby steps between them.
Now don't you two boys start quarreling again the minute you've seen each other.
There won't be any fight. Aunt Abby. Jonathan, you're not wanted here. Get out.
Dr. Einstein and I have been invited to stay.
Not in this house.
Just for the night.
I don't want him anywhere near me.
But we did invite them for tonight, and it wouldn't be very nice to go back on our word.
All right, tonight. But the first thing in the morning, out. Where are they sleeping?
We put them in Jonathan's old room.
That's my old room. I'm sleeping in that room. I'm here to stay.
Oh, Mortimer, I'm so glad.
Johnny, we sleep down here.
You bet your life you sleep down here.
You sleep on the sofa and I sleep on the window seat.
At the mention of the window seat, Mortimer has reached the landing. After hanging his hat on the hall tree, he turns and comes slowly downstairs, speaking as he reaches the floor and crossing over to the window seat. He drops back at the end of the window seat.
The window seat. Oh, well, let's not argue about it. The window seat's good enough for me tonight. I'll sleep on the window seat.
As Mortimer crosses above the table, Einstein makes a gesture as though to stop him from going to the window seat, but he's too late. He turns to Jonathan as Mortimer sits on window seat.
You know, Johnny, all this argument, it makes me think of Mr. Spinalzo.
Spinalzo.
He steps up, looking around for Spinalzo again. Realizing it would be best for them to remain downstairs, he speaks to Mortimer.
Well now, Mortimer, it really isn't necessary to inconvenience you like this. We'll sleep down here.
Jonathan, your sudden consideration for me is very unconvincing.
Come along, Johnny, we get our things out of the room, eh?
Don't bother, Doctor.
By the way, Doctor, I've completely lost track of Mr. Spinalzo.
Who's this Mr. Spinalzo?
Just a friend of ours Johnny's been looking for.
Well, don't bring anyone else in here.
It's all right, Johnny. While we pack, I tell you all about it.
He goes on up and through the arch. Jonathan starts upstairs.
Mortimer, you don't have to sleep down here. I can go with Martha, and you can take my room.
No trouble at all, Aunt Abby. We'll be packed in a few minutes, and then you can have the room, Mortimer.
He exits through the arch. Mortimer crosses up to the sofa. Martha crosses to above armchair of the table, and as Mortimer speaks, she speaks up sport shoe belonging to Spinazzo that Einstein put there in blackout scene, unnoticed by anyone. She pretends to dust the hem of her dress.
You're just wasting your time. I told you I'm sleeping down here.
Elaine leaps up from the stool into Mortimer's arms.
Oh, Mortimer.
What's the matter with you, dear?
Well, I've almost been killed.
You've almost been... Abby, Martha!
No, it was Jonathan.
He mistook her for a sneak thief.
No, it was more than that. He's some kind of maniac. Mortimer, I'm afraid of him.
Why, darling, you're trembling. Have you got any smelling salts?
No, but do you think some hot tea or coffee?
Coffee. Make some for me too, and some sandwiches. I haven't had any dinner.
We'll make something for the both of you.
Mortimer starts to question Elaine as Abby takes off her hat and gloves and puts them on sideboard, talking to Martha at the same time.
Martha, we can leave our hats downstairs here now.
Mortimer turns and sees her.
You weren't going out somewhere, were you? Do you know what time it is? It's after 12.
The word 12 rings a bell.
12? Elaine, you've got to go home.
What?
Well, you wanted some sandwiches for you both. It won't take a minute.
Mortimer is looking at Elaine with his back to Martha. Martha crosses to him with the shoe in hand by her side.
Why, don't you remember? We wanted to celebrate your engagement.
She punctuates the word engagement by pointing the shoe at Mortimer's back. She looks at the shoe in wonderment, wondering how that shoe ever got in her hand. She stares at it a moment. The other two do not see it, of course, then puts it on top of the table. Finally dismissing it, she turns to Mortimer again.
That's what we'll do, dear. We'll make a nice supper for both of you. And we'll open a bottle of wine.
All right. No wine!
He closes the door and comes back as Elaine rises from the sofa to him. She is still very upset.
Mortimer, what is going on in this house?
What do you mean, what is going on in this house?
You were supposed to take me to dinner and the theatre tonight. You called it off. You asked me to marry you. I said I would. And 5 minutes later, you threw me out of the house. Tonight, just after your brother tries to strangle me, you want to chase me home. Now, listen, Mr. Brewster. Before I go home, I want to know where I stand. Do you love me?
I love you very much, Elaine. In fact, I love you so much, I can't marry you.
Have you suddenly gone crazy?
I don't think so, but it's just a matter of time. You see, insanity runs in my family. It practically gallops. That's why I can't marry you, dear.
Now, wait a minute. You've got to do better than that.
No, dear. There's a strange taint in the Brewster blood. If you really knew my family, it's what you'd expect if Strindleberg had written Hazel Poppin.
Now, just because Teddy is a little...
No, it goes way back. The first Brewster, the one who came over here on the Mayflower. You know, in those days, the Indians used to scalp the settlers. He used to scalp the Indians.
Mortimer, that's ancient history.
No, the whole family. Take my grandfather. He tried his patent medicines on the dead people just to be sure he wouldn't kill them.
Oh, he wasn't so crazy. He made $1 million.
And then there's Jonathan. You just said he was a maniac. He tried to kill you.
But he's your brother, not you. I'm in love with you.
And there's Teddy, too. You know Teddy. He thinks he's Roosevelt. No, dear. No Brewster should marry. I realize now that if I'd met my father in time, I'd have stopped him.
Now, darling, all this doesn't prove you're crazy. Look at your aunts. They're Brewsters, aren't they? And they're the sanest, sweetest people I've ever known.
Mortimer crosses to the window seat, speaking as he goes.
Well, even they have their peculiarities.
Yes, but what lovely peculiarities. Kindness, generosity, human sympathy.
Mortimer sees Elaine's back is to him. He lifts the window seat to take a peek and sees Mr. Spinelzo instead of Mr. Hoskins. He puts window seat down again and staggers to the table, leans on it.
There's another one.
Oh, Mortimer, there are plenty of others. You can't tell me anything about your aunts.
I'm not going to. Look, Elaine, you've got to go home. Something very important has just come up.
Up from where? We're here alone, together.
I know I'm acting irrationally, but just put it down to the fact that I'm a mad Brewster.
If you think you're going to get out of this by pretending you're insane, you're crazy. Maybe you're not going to marry me, but I'm going to marry you. I love you, you dope.
Well, if you love me, will you get the hell out of here?
Well, at least take me home, won't you? I'm afraid.
Afraid? A little walk through the cemetery?
Elaine crosses to the door, then changing tactics, turns to Mortimer.
Mortimer, will you kiss me goodnight?
Of course, dear.
What Mortimer plans to be a desultory peck, Elaine turns into a production number. He comes out of it with no less of poise.
Good night, dear. I'll call you up in a day or two.
She walks to the door in a cold fury, opens it, and turns to Mortimer.
You you critic!
Mortimer looks at the door helplessly, then turns and stalks to the kitchen door.
Aunt Abby, Aunt Martha, come in here.
We'll be in a minute, dear.
Come in here now!
Abby enters from the kitchen.
Yes, dear, what is it? Where's Elaine?
I thought you promised me not to let anyone in this house while I was gone.
The following
Well,
speeches overlap.
I don't mean
Jonathan just
Jonathan.
walked in and Mr. Einstein was with
And
him.
I don't mean Mr. Einstein. Who's that in the window
We
seat?
told you Mr. Hoskins.
Mortimer
It
throws open the window seat and steps back.
is not Mr. Hoskins.
Abby, a little puzzled, walks to window seat and looks in, and then speaks very simply.
Huh. Well, who can that be?
Are you trying to tell me you've never seen this man before?
I certainly am. Why, this is a fine how do you do. It's getting so everybody thinks he can walk into this house.
Now, Aunt Abby, don't you try and get out of this. That's another one of your gentlemen.
Mortimer! How can you say such a thing? That man's an impostor. And if he came in here to be buried in our cellar, he's mistaken.
Oh, Aunt Abby, you admitted to me that you put Mr. Hoskins in the window seat.
Yes, I did.
Well, this man couldn't have just got the idea from Mr. Hoskins. By the way, where is Mr. Hoskins?
He looks toward the cellar door. Abby crosses above the table.
Well, he must have gone to Panama.
Oh, you buried him?
Oh, no, not yet. He's just down there waiting for the services. Poor dear. We haven't had a minute, what with Jonathan in the house.
At the mention of Jonathan's name, Mortimer closes the window seat.
Oh, dear. We've always wanted to hold a double funeral. But I will not read services for a total stranger.
A stranger? Aunt Abby, how can I believe you? There are 12 men in the cellar, and you admit that you poisoned them.
Yes, I did. But you don't think I'd stoop to telling a fib?
She exits into the kitchen. At the same time, Jonathan enters through the arch into a balcony and comes down quickly to the foot of the stairs. Mortimer crosses to Jonathan, and Jonathan sees him and crosses to him.
Oh, Mortimer, I'd like to have a word with you.
A word's about all you'll have time for, Jonathan, because I've decided you and your doctor friend are going to have to get out of this house just as quickly as possible.
I'm glad you recognize the fact that you and I can't live under the same roof, but you've arrived at the wrong solution. Take your suitcase and get out.
He starts to cross above Mortimer, anxious to get to the window seat, but Mortimer takes a big sweep above the table and comes back to him.
Jonathan, you're beginning to bore me. You've played your one-night stand in Brooklyn. Move on.
My dear Mortimer, just because you've graduated from the back fence to the typewriter, don't think you've grown up.
He takes a sudden step around Mortimer and gets to the window seat and sits.
I'm staying and you're leaving, and I mean now.
If you think I can be frightened, if you think there's anything I fear...
He rises. They stand facing each other.
I've lived a strange life, Mortimer, but it's taught me one thing: to be afraid of nothing.
They glare at each other with equal courage when Abby marches in from the kitchen, followed by Martha.
Martha, just look and see what's in the window seat.
Both men throw themselves in the window seat simultaneously.
Now, Aunt
Aunt Abby!
Mortimer turns his head slowly to Jonathan, light dawning on his face. He rises with smiling assurance.
Jonathan, let Aunt Martha see what's in the window seat.
Jonathan freezes dangerously. Mortimer crosses below the table and up to Abby.
Aunt Abby, I owe you an apology. I have very good news for you. Jonathan is leaving. He's taking Dr. Einstein and their cold companion with him. Jonathan, you're my brother. You're a Brewster. I'm going to give you a chance to get away and take the evidence with you. You can't ask for more than that. Very well. In that case, we'll have to call the police.
Mortimer crosses to the phone and picks it up.
Don't reach for that telephone.
He goes up to Mortimer.
Are you still giving me orders after seeing what's happened to Mr. Spinalzo?
Spinalzo?
I knew he was a foreigner.
Remember, what happened to Mr. Spinalzo can happen to you too.
There's a knock on the door. Abby crosses and opens it, and Officer O'Hara sticks his head in.
Hello, Miss Abby.
Oh, Officer O'Hara, is there something we can do for you?
Mortimer puts the phone down and drifts down close to O'Hara. Jonathan turns.
Well, I saw your lights on and thought there might be sickness in the house. Oh, you've got company. I'm sorry I disturbed you.
Oh, no. Come in.
Yes, come in.
Come right in, Officer O'Hara.
Mortimer leads O'Hara a couple of steps and shuts the door. Abby crosses back to Martha, and Martha is near the desk. Jonathan is in front of the sofa.
This is our nephew, Mortimer.
Pleased to meet you.
Jonathan steps toward the kitchen.
And this is another nephew, Jonathan.
I'm pleased to make your acquaintance.
Jonathan ignores him.
Well, it must be nice having your nephews visiting you. Are they gonna stay with you for a bit?
I'm staying. My brother Jonathan is just leaving.
Jonathan starts for the stairs. O'Hara stops him.
I've met you here before, haven't I?
I'm afraid not. Jonathan hasn't been home for years.
Your face looks familiar to me. Maybe I've seen a picture of you somewheres.
I don't think so.
He hurries upstairs.
Yes, Jonathan, I'd hurry if I were you. Your things are all packed anyway, aren't they?
Well, you'll be wanting to say your goodbyes. Oh, I'll be running along.
What's the rush? I'd like to have you stick around until my brother goes.
Jonathan exits through the arch.
Oh, well, I just dropped in to make sure everything was all right.
We're going to have some coffee in a minute. Won't you join us?
Oh, I forgot the coffee.
Well, I'd better make some more sandwiches. I ought to know your appetite by this time, Officer O'Hara.
He goes out to the kitchen as O'Hara follows as far as the corner.
Oh, don't bother. I'm due to ring in a few minutes.
You can have a cup of coffee with us. My brother will be gone soon.
He leads
Sit
O'Hara
down.
below table to armchair.
Say, ain't I seen a photograph of your brother around here someplace?
I don't think so.
Well, he certainly reminds me of somebody.
He looks like somebody you've probably seen in the movies.
I never go to the movies. I hate 'em. My mother says the movies is a bastard art.
Yes, it's full of them. Your mother said that.
Yeah, my mother was an actress, a stage actress. Perhaps you heard of her. Peaches Latour?
It sounds like a name I've seen on a program. What did she play?
Well, their big hit was Mutt and Jeff. Played it for 3 years. I was born on tour, third season.
You were.
Yep, Shoe City, Iowa. I was born in the dressing room at the end of the second act, and Mother made the finale.
What a trooper. There must be a good story on your mother. You know, I write about the theatre.
You do? Say, you're not Mortimer Brewster, the dramatic critic.
Yes!
Well, I certainly am glad to meet you.
He moves his hat and stick preparatory to shaking hands with Mortimer. He also picks up the sports shoe which Martha has left on the table. He looks at it for just a split second and puts it back on the table. Mortimer sees it and stares at it.
Say, Mr. Brewster, we're in the same line of business.
Oh, we are?
Yeah, I'm a playwright. Oh, this being on the police force is just temporary.
How long have you been on the force?
12 years. I'm collecting material for a play.
I'll bet it's all a honey.
Well, it ought to be, with all the drama I see being a cop. Oh, Mr. Brewster, you got no idea what goes on in Brooklyn.
I think I have.
He puts the shoe under his chair, then looks at his watch, then looks toward the balcony.
Say, what time you got?
10 after 1.
Gee, I gotta ring in.
He starts for the door, but Mortimer stops him.
Wait a minute, O'Hara. On that play of yours, I might be able to help you.
He sits him in a chair.
You would? Say, it was fate my walking in here tonight. Look, I'll tell you the plot.
At this point, Jonathan enters on the balcony, followed by Dr. Einstein. They each have a bag. At the same moment, Abby enters from the kitchen. Helpful as the cop has been, Mortimer does not want to listen to his plot. As he backs away from him, he speaks to Jonathan as they come downstairs.
Oh, you're on your way, eh? Good. You haven't got much time, you know.
Well, everything's just about ready.
Sees
Oh,
Jonathan and Einstein.
you're leaving now, Jonathan. Oh, goodbye. Goodbye, Dr. Einstein. Oh,
She sees instrument case above the window seat.
Oh, doesn't this case belong to you?
This reminds Mortimer of Mr. Spinalzo.
Yes, Jonathan, you can't go without all your things. Well, O'Hara, it was nice meeting you. I'll see you again, and we'll talk about your play.
Oh, I'm not leaving now, Mr. Brewster.
Why not?
Well, you just offered me to help me write my play, didn't you? You and me are going to write my play together.
I can't do that, O'Hara. I'm not a creative writer.
Well, I'll do the creatin', you just put the words to it.
But O'Hara,
And no, sir, Mr. Brewster, I ain't leaving this house till I tell you the plot.
He crosses and sits on the window seat.
In that case, Mortimer, we'll be running along.
don't try that. You can't go yet. You've got to take everything with you, you know. Look, O'Hara, you run along now, eh? My brother's just going.
Ah, I can wait. I've been waiting 12 years.
Martha enters from the kitchen with a tray of coffee and sandwiches.
I'm sorry I was so long.
Oh, don't bring that in here. O'Hara, would you join us for a bite in the kitchen?
The kitchen?
Jonathan's leaving.
Oh! Well, that's nice. Come along, Officer O'Hara.
O'Hara gets to the kitchen doorway as Abby speaks.
Sure you don't mind eating in the kitchen, Mr. O'Hara?
Well, where else would you eat?
Goodbye, Jonathan. Nice to have seen you again.
O'Hara exits the kitchen, followed by Abby. Mortimer crosses to kitchen doorway and shuts the door, then turns to Jonathan.
I'm glad you came back to Brooklyn, Jonathan, because it gives me a chance to throw you out. And the first one out is your boyfriend, Mr. Spinalzo.
He lifts up window seat. As he does so, O'Hara, sandwich in hand, enters from kitchen. Mortimer drops window seat.
Oh, look, Mr. Brewster, we can talk in here.
Coming right now.
I might have known you'd grow up to write a play with a policeman.
Get going now. All three of you.
Jonathan puts the bag down and crosses to the window seat.
Doctor, this affair between my brother and me has got to be settled.
Crossing to window seat for instrument case and bringing it to the foot of the stairs.
Now, Johnny, we got trouble enough. Your brother gives us a chance to get away. What more could you ask?
You don't understand.
He lifts window seat.
This goes back a good many years.
Foot of stairs.
Now, Johnny, let's get going.
We're not going. We're going to sleep right here tonight.
With a cop in the kitchen and Mr. Spinalzo in the window seat?
That's all he's got on us.
Puts window seat down.
We'll take Mr. Spinalzo down and dump him in the bay and come right back here. Then, if he tries to interfere...
Now, Johnny.
Doctor, you know, when I make up my mind...
Yeah, when you make up your mind, you lose your head. Brooklyn ain't a good place for you.
Doctor.
Okay, we got to stick together. Someday we get stuck together. If we're coming back here, do we got to take this with us?
No, leave them here. Hide them in the cellar. Move fast.
He moves to bags to the end of the sofa as Einstein goes down to the cellar with the instrument case.
Spinalzo can go out the same way he came in.
He kneels on window seat and looks out. Then, as he... Oh, there it is. Starts to lift window seat, Einstein comes in from the cellar with some excitement.
Hey, Johnny, come quick.
What's the matter?
You know that hole in the cellar?
Yes?
We got an ace in the hole. Come on, I show you.
They both exit into the cellar. Jonathan shuts the door. Mortimer enters from the kitchen, sees their bags still there. He opens window seat and sees Spinalzo. Then he puts his head out window and yells.
Jonathan! Jonathan!
Jonathan comes through cellar door, unnoticed by Mortimer, and crosses to the back of him. Einstein comes down into the room as well.
Jonathan!
Yes, Mortimer?
Why- Where have you two been? I thought I told you to get.
We're not going.
Oh, you're not. You think I'm not serious about this, eh? Do you want O'Hara to know what's in that window seat?
We're staying here.
All right. You asked for it. This gets me rid of you and Officer O'Hara at the same time. Officer O'Hara, come in here.
If you tell O'Hara what's in the window seat, I'll tell him what's down in the cellar.
Mortimer closes the kitchen door quickly.
The cellar?
There's an elderly gentleman down there who seems to be very dead.
What were you doing in the cellar?
What's he doing down in the cellar?
No, thanks, ma'am. They were fine. I've had plenty.
Now, what are you going to say to O'Hara?
Say,
O'Hara.
Mr. Brewster, your aunts want to hear it too. Shall I get them in here?
No, O'Hara, you can't do that now. You've got to ring in.
The hell with ringing in. I'll get your aunts in here and tell you the plot.
No, O'Hara, not in front of all these people. We'll get together alone, someplace later.
How about the back room at Kelly's?
Fine, fine. You go ring in, and I'll meet you at Kelly's.
Why don't you two go down in the cellar?
Oh, that's all right with me. Is this the cellar?
No, we'll go to Kelly's, but you're going to ring in on the way.
All right. Well, that'll only take a couple of minutes.
Mortimer takes his hat from the hall tray and crosses to open the door.
I'll ditch this guy and be back in 5 minutes. I'll expect to find you gone. Wait for me.
Einstein sits at table.
We'll wait for him, Doctor. I've waited a great many years for a chance like this.
We got him right where we want him. Did he look guilty?
Take the bags back up to our room, Doctor.
Einstein gets the bags and reaches foot of the stairs with them. Abby and Martha enter from the kitchen. Abby speaks as she enters.
Have they gone? Oh, well, we thought we'd heard somebody leave.
Just Mortimer, and he'll be back in a few minutes. Is there any food left in the kitchen? I think Dr. Einstein and I would enjoy a bite.
But you won't have time.
No, if you're still here when Mortimer gets back, he won't like it.
He'll like it. He's gotta like it.
Get something for us to eat while we bury Mr. Spinalzo in the cellar.
Oh, no!
He can't stay in our cellar. No, Jonathan, you've got to take him with you.
There's a friend of Mortimer's downstairs waiting for him.
A friend of Mortimer's.
He and Mr. Spinalzo will get along fine together. They're both dead.
Oh, they must mean Mr. Hoskins.
Mr. Hoskins?
You know about what's downstairs.
Of course we do. And he is no friend of Mortimer's. He's one of our gentlemen.
Your gentleman?
And we won't have any strangers buried in our cellar.
But Mr. Hoskins.
Mr. Hoskins isn't a stranger.
Besides, there's no room for Mr. Spinalzo. The cell is crowded already.
Crowded with what?
Well, there are 12 graves down there now.
The two men draw back in amazement.
12 graves.
That leaves very little room, and we're going to need it.
You mean you and Aunt Martha have murdered?
Murdered? Certainly not. It's one of our charities.
Why, what we've been doing is a mercy.
So you just take your Mr. Spinalzo out of here.
You've done that. Here in this house. And you've buried them down there.
Johnny, we've been chased all over the world. They stay right here in Brooklyn and do it just as good as you do.
What?
You've got 12 and they've got 12.
I've got 13.
No, Johnny, 12.
13. There's Mr. Spinalzo, then the first one in London, 2 in Johannesburg, 1 in Sydney, 1 in Melbourne, 2 in San Francisco, 1 in Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix?
The filling station. The 3 in Chicago and the 1 in South Bend. That makes 13.
But you can't count the one in South Bend. He died of pneumonia.
He wouldn't have got pneumonia if I hadn't shot him.
No, Johnny, he died of pneumonia. He don't count.
He counts with me. I say 13.
No, Johnny, you got 12 and they got 12. The old ladies are just as good as you are.
The two aunts smile at each other happily. Jonathan turns, facing the three of them, and speaks menacingly.
Oh, they are they? Well, that's easily taken care of. All I need is one more, that's all. Just one more.
Mortimer enters hastily, closing the door behind him, and turns to them with a nervous smile.
Well, here I am.
Jonathan turns and looks at him with the widening eyes of someone who has just solved a problem as the curtain falls. End of Act 2. Arsenic and Old Lace, Act 3. Scene 1. The scene is the same. Still later that night. The curtain rises on an empty stage. The window seat is open, and we can see that it's empty. The armchair has been shifted to the right of the table. The drapes over the windows are closed. All doors, except the cellar door, are closed. Abney's hymnal and black gloves are on the sideboard. Martha's hymnal and gloves are on the table. Otherwise, the room is the same. As the curtain rises, we hear a row from the cellar, though through the open door. The speeches overlap in excitement and anger until the aunts appear on the stage from the cellar door.
You stop doing that!
This is our house and this is our cellar, and you can't do that.
Ladies, please go back upstairs where you belong.
Abby, Martha, go upstairs.
There's no use doing what you're doing because it will just have to be undone.
I'll tell you, we won't have it, and you better stop it right now.
All right, you'll find out. You'll find out whose house this is.
He crosses to the door, opens it, and looks out, then closes it.
I'm warning you. You'd better stop it. Hasn't Mortimer come back yet?
No.
What a terrible thing to do, to bury a good Methodist with a foreigner.
I will not have our cellar desecrated.
And we promised Mr. Hoskins a full Christian funeral. Where do you suppose Mortimer went?
I don't know, but he must be doing something because he said to Jonathan, "You just wait, I'll settle this."
Well, he can't very well settle it while he's out of the house. That's all we want settled. That's what's going on down there.
Mortimer enters, closes the door.
All right. Now, where's Teddy?
The aunts are very much annoyed with Mortimer.
Mortimer, where have you been?
I've been over to Dr. Gilchrist's. I got his signature on Teddy's commitment papers.
Mortimer, what is the matter with you?
Running around and getting papers signed at a time like this?
Do you know what Jonathan's doing?
He's putting Mr. Hoskins and Mr. Spinalzo in together.
Oh, he is he? Well, let him. Is Teddy in his room?
Teddy won't be any help.
When he signs these commitment papers, I can tackle Jonathan.
What have they got to do with it?
You had to go and tell Jonathan about those 12 graves. If I can make Teddy responsible for those, I can protect you, don't you see?
No, I don't see. And we pay taxes to have the police protect us.
I'll go back down in a minute.
Come, Martha, we're going for the police.
Martha gets her gloves and hymnal from the sideboard. They both start to the door.
All right. The police. You can't go for the police.
Why can't we?
Because if you tell the police about Mr. Speranzo, they'll find Mr. Hoskins too. And that might make them curious, and they'd find about the other 12 gentlemen.
Mortimer, we know the police better than you do. I don't think they'd pry into our private affairs if we asked them not to.
But if they found your 12 gentlemen, they'd have to report to headquarters.
I'm not so sure they'd bother. They'd have to make out a very long report. And if there's one thing a policeman hates to do, it's to write.
Uh-huh.
You can't depend on that. It might leak out, and you couldn't expect a judge and jury to understand.
Oh, Judge Cullman would.
We know him very well.
He always comes to church to pray, just before election.
And he is coming here to tea someday, we promised.
Oh, Abby, we must speak to him about that. His wife died a few years ago, and it's left him very lonely.
Oh, well, come along, Martha.
She starts toward the door, and Mortimer gets there first.
No, you can't do this. I won't let you. You can't leave this house, and you can't have Judge Coleman to tea.
Well, if you're not going to do something about Mr. Spinalzo, we are.
I am going to do something. We may have to call the police in later, but if we do, I want to be ready for them.
You've got to get Jonathan out of this house.
And Mr. Spinalzo, too.
Will you please let me do this my own way? I've got to see Teddy.
If they're not out here by morning, Mortimer, we're going to call the police.
They'll be out. I promise you that. Go to bed, will you? And for God's sake, get out of those clothes. You look like Judith Anderson.
He exits into the hall, closing the door.
Well, Abby, that's a relief, isn't it?
Yes, if Mortimer's really going to do something at least. It just means Jonathan's going to get a lot of unnecessary trouble. We better tell him.
Abby starts to the cellar door as Jonathan comes in. They meet in front of the sofa. His clothes are dirty.
Oh, Jonathan, you might as well stop what you're doing.
It's all done. Did I hear Mortimer?
Well, it will just have to be undone. You're all going to be out of this house by morning, Mortimer's promised.
Oh, are we? In that case, you and Aunt Martha can go to bed and have a pleasant night's sleep.
Yes. Come, Abby.
Abby follows Martha upstairs.
Good night, aunties.
Not good night, Jonathan. Goodbye. By the time we get up, you'll be out of this house. Mortimer's promised.
And he has a way of doing it, too.
Then Mortimer's back.
Oh, yes. He's up here talking to Teddy.
Goodbye, Jonathan.
Goodbye, Jonathan.
Perhaps you'd better say goodbye to Mortimer.
Oh, you'll see, Mortimer.
Yes. I'll see Mortimer.
Abby and Martha exit. Jonathan sits without moving. There is clear murder in his thought. Einstein enters from the cellar. He dusts off his trouser cuffs, lifting his leg, and we see he is wearing Spinelli's sports shoes.
Phew, that's all fixed up. Smooth like a lake. Nobody's ever know they were down there. That bed feels good already. 48 hours we didn't sleep. Come on, Johnny, let's go up, yes?
You're forgetting, Doctor.
What?
My brother, Mortimer.
Johnny, tonight? We do that tomorrow or the next day.
No, tonight. Now.
Johnny, please. I'm tired, and tomorrow I got to operate.
Yes, you're operating tomorrow, Doctor. But tonight, we take care of Mortimer.
Kneeling in front of
But
Jonathan, trying to pacify him.
But Johnny, not tonight. We go to bed, eh?
Doctor, look at me. You can see it's going to be done, can't you?
Ah, Johnny, I can't see. I know that look.
It's a little too late for us to dissolve our partnership.
Okay, we do it, but the quick way. The quick twist, like in London.
He gives that London neck another twist with his hands and makes a noise, suggesting a strangulation.
No, Doctor, I think this calls for something special.
He walks toward Einstein, who breaks. Jonathan has the look of beginning to anticipate a rare pleasure.
I think perhaps the Melbourne method.
Johnny, no, not that. 2 hours. And when it was all over, what? The fellow in London was just as dead as the fellow in Melbourne.
We had to work too fast in London. There was no aesthetic satisfaction in it. But Melbourne, there was something to remember.
Remember? I wish I didn't. No, Johnny, not Melbourne, not me.
Yes, Doctor. Where are the instruments?
I won't do it, Johnny. I won't do it.
Get your instruments.
No, Johnny.
Where are they? Oh, yes. You hid them in the cellar. Where?
I won't tell you.
I'll find them, Doctor.
Keeg exits to the cellar, closing the door. Teddy enters on balcony and lifts his bugle to blow. Mortimer dashes out and grabs his arm. Einstein has rushed to the cellar door. He stands there as Mortimer and Teddy speak.
Don't do that, Mr. President.
I cannot sign any proclamation without consulting my cabinet.
But this must be a secret.
A secret proclamation? How unusual.
Japan mustn't know until it's signed.
Japan, those devils. I'll sign it right away. You have my word for it. I can let the cabinet know later.
Yes, let's go and sign it.
You wait here. A secret proclamation has to be signed in secret.
But at once, Mr. President.
I'll have to put on my signing clothes.
Teddy exits. Mortimer comes downstairs. Einstein crosses and takes Mortimer's hat off the hall tree and hands it to him.
You go now, eh?
No, Doctor. I'm waiting for something. Something important.
Please, you go now.
Dr. Einstein, I have nothing against you personally. You seem to be a nice fellow. Take my advice and get out of this house and get just as far away as possible.
Trouble, yeah, you get out.
All right. Don't say I didn't warn you.
I'm warning you, get away, quick.
Things are going to start popping around here any minute.
Listen, Johnny's in a bad mood. When he's like this, he's a madman. Things happen. Terrible things.
Jonathan doesn't worry me now.
Emil, don't those plays you see teach you anything?
About what?
Well, at least people in plays act like they got sense. That's more than you do.
Ah, you think so, do you? You think people in plays act intelligently? I wish you had to sit through some of the ones I had to sit through. Take the little opus I saw tonight, for instance. In this play, there's a man. He's supposed to be bright. He knows he's in a house with murderers. He ought to know, but he's in danger. He's even been warned to get out of the house, but does he go? No, he stays there. Now I ask you, Doctor, is this what an intelligent person would do?
You're asking me?
He didn't even have the sense to be frightened, to be on guard. For instance, the murderer invites him to sit down.
You mean, won't you sit down?
Believe it or not, that one was in there too.
And what did he do?
He sat down. Now, mind you, this fellow's supposed to be bright. There he sits, just waiting to be trussed up. And what do you think they used to tie him with?
What?
The curtain cord.
Jonathan spies curtain cords on either side of window and left wall. He crosses, stands on window seat, and cuts the cords with a penknife.
Well, why not? A good idea, very convenient.
A little too convenient. When are playwrights going to use some imagination? The curtain cord.
Jonathan
didn't
has
see-
got the curtain cord and is moving in slowly behind Mortimer.
He didn't see him get in.
See him? He sat there with his back to him. That's the kind of stuff we have to suffer through night after night. And they say the critics are killing the theatre. It's the playwrights who are killing the theatre. So there he sits, the big dope. This fellow, who's supposed to be bright, just waiting to be trussed up and gagged.
Jonathan drops loop of curtain cord over Mortimer's shoulder and draws it taut. At the same time, he draws another loop of cord on floor besides Einstein. Simultaneously, Einstein leaps to Mortimer and gags him with handkerchief, then takes his curtain cord and ties Mortimer's legs to the chair.
You're right about that fella. He wasn't very bright.
Now, Mortimer, if you don't mind, we'll finish the story.
He goes to the sideboard and brings 2 candelabras to the table and speaks as he lights them. Einstein remains kneeling beside Mortimer.
Mortimer, I've been away for 20 years, but never once in all that time, my dear brother, were you out of my mind. In Melbourne one night, I dreamed of you. When I landed in San Francisco, I felt a strange satisfaction. Once more, I was in the same country with you.
Jonathan has finished lighting the candles. He crosses right and flips the light switch, darkening the stage. As he crosses, Einstein gets up and crosses to the window seat. Jonathan picks up instrument case at cellar doorway and sets it on the table between candelabras and opens it, revealing various surgical instruments both in the bottom of the case and on the inside of the cover.
Now, Doctor, we go to work.
He removes an instrument from the case and fingers it lovingly as Einstein crosses and kneels on chair on the left of the table. He is not too happy about all this.
Please, Johnny, for me, the quick way.
Doctor, this must really be an artistic achievement. After all, we're performing before a very distinguished critic.
Johnny.
Doctor!
All right, let's get it over.
He closes drapes tightly and sits on the window seat. Jonathan takes 3 or 4 more instruments out of the case and fingers them. At last, having the necessary equipment laid out on the towel, he begins to put on a pair of rubber gloves.
All ready for you, Doctor.
I gotta have a drink. I can't do this without a drink.
He takes bottle from pocket, drinks, finds it empty, rises.
Pull yourself together, Doctor.
I gotta have a drink. When we walked in here this afternoon, there was wine here, remember? Where did she put that?
He looks at sideboard and remembers. He goes to it, opens the cupboard, and brings bottle and 2 wine glasses to the end of the tabletop.
Look, Johnny, we got a drink.
He pours wine into the 2 glasses, emptying the bottle. Mortimer watches him.
That's all there is. I split it with you. We both need a drink.
He hands 1 glass to Jonathan, then raises his own glass to his lips. Jonathan stops him.
One moment, Doctor. Please. Where are your manners? Yes, Mortimer. I realize now it was you who brought me back to Brooklyn.
He looks at the wine, then draws it back and forth under his nose, smelling it. He decides that it's all right, apparently, for him, and he raises his glass.
Doctor, to my dear dead brother.
As they get the glasses to their lips, Teddy steps out on the balcony and blows a terrific call on his bugle. Ba-ba-da-ba! Einstein and Jonathan drop their glasses, spilling the wine. Teddy turns and exits.
Ah, God.
Damn that idiot.
He starts for the stairs. Einstein rushes over and intercepts him.
He goes next. That's all. He goes next.
No, Johnny, not Teddy. That's why I stopped, not Teddy.
We get to Teddy later.
We don't get to him at all.
Now we've got to work fast.
He crosses to Mortimer. Einstein steps in front of Mortimer.
Yeah, the quick way, eh, Johnny?
Yes, Doctor, the quick way.
He pulls out a large silk handkerchief from his inside pocket and drops it around Mortimer's neck. At this point, the door bursts open and Officer O'Hara comes in, very excited.
Hey, the Colonel's gotta quit blowing that horn.
Jonathan and Einstein are standing in front of Mortimer, hiding him from O'Hara.
It's all right, officer. We're taking the bugle away from him.
There's gonna be hell to pay in the morning. We promised the neighbors he wouldn't do that anymore.
It won't happen again, officer. Good night.
Well, I better speak to him myself. Where are the lights?
O'Hara puts on the lights and goes upstairs to landing when he sees Mortimer.
Hey, you stood me up. I waited an hour at Kelly's for you.
He comes downstairs and over to Mortimer and looks at him, then speaks to Jonathan and Einstein.
What happened to him?
He was explaining the play he saw tonight. That's what happened to the fella in the play.
Did they have that in the play you saw tonight?
Mortimer nods his head, yes.
Gee, they practically stole that from the second act of my play. Why, in my second act, just before the, well, I'd better begin at the beginning. It opens in my mother's dressing room, where I was born. Well, only I ain't born yet.
Mortimer rubs his shoes together to attract O'Hara's attention.
Huh? Oh, yeah.
O'Hara starts to remove the gag from Mortimer's mouth and then decides not to.
No, you gotta hear the plot.
He gets a stool and brings it to Mortimer and sits, continuing on with his plot as the curtain falls.
Well, she's sitting there making up, see? When all of a sudden through the door, a man with a black mustache walks in, turns to my mother and says, "Miss Latour, will you marry me?" And he doesn't know she's pregnant.
End of scene 1. Beginning of scene 2. Scene is the same. Early the next morning. When the curtain rises again, daylight is streaming through the windows. All doors closed. All drapes open. Mortimer is still tied in his chair and seems to be in a semi-conscious state. Jonathan is asleep on the sofa. Einstein, pleasantly intoxicated, is seated to the left of the table, his head resting on the tabletop. O'Hara, with his coat off and his collar loosened, is standing over the stool which is between him and Mortimer. He has progressed to the most exciting scene of his play. There is a bottle of whiskey and a water tumbler on the table, along with a plate full of cigarette butts.
And there she is lying unconscious across the table in her lingerie, and that guy's standing over her with a hatchet, like, I'm tied up in a chair just like you are. The place is an inferno of flames. It's on fire. When all of a sudden, through the window, in comes Mayor LaGuardia.
Einstein raises his head and looks out the window. Seeing anyone, he reaches for the bottle and pours himself another drink. O'Hara crosses above to him and takes the bottle.
Hey, remember who paid for that? Go easy on it.
Well, I'm listening, ain't I?
He crosses to Jonathan on the sofa.
Well, how do you like it so far?
Well, it put Johnny to sleep.
O'Hara has just finished a swig from the bottle.
I will let him alone. If he ain't got no more interest in that, he don't get a drink.
Einstein takes his glass and sits on the bottom stair. At the same time, O'Hara crosses, puts stool under the desk and whiskey bottle on top of the desk, then comes back to the center and goes on with his play.
All right. It's 3 days later. I've been transferred and I'm under charges. That's because somebody stole my badge. All right. I'm walking my beat on Staten Island, 46th precinct, when a guy I'm following, it turns out, is really following me.
There is a knock on the door. Einstein goes up and looks out, landing window. Leaves glass behind the drape.
No, don't let anybody in. So I figure I'll outsmarting him. There's a vacant house on the corner. I goes in.
It's cops.
I stands there in the dark and I see the door handle turn.
Rushing downstairs, shakes Jake and Jonathan by the shoulder.
Johnny, it's cops! Cops!
Jonathan doesn't move. Einstein rushes upstairs and off through the arch. O'Hara is going on with his story without a stop.
And I pulls my guns, I braces myself against the wall, and I says, "Come in."
Officer Brophy and Klein walk in, see O'Hara with a gun pointed at them and raise their hands. Then, recognizing their fellow officer, lower them.
Hello, boys.
What the hell is going on here?
Hey, Pat, what do you know? This is Mortimer Brewster. He's gonna write my play with me. I'm just telling him the story.
Crossing the Mortimer and untying him.
Did you have to tie him up to make him listen?
Joe, you better report the situation at the station. The whole force is out looking for you.
Did they send you here from me? Oh, we didn't know you was here.
We came to warn the old ladies that there's hell to pay. The Colonel blew that bugle again in the middle of the night.
From the way the neighbours have been calling in about it, you'd think the Germans had dropped a bomb on Flatbush Avenue.
He has finished untying Mortimer. Puts cords on sideboard.
Lieutenant's on the warpath. He says the Colonel's got to be put away someplace. Yes.
Oh, gee, Mr. Brewster, I gotta get away, so I'll just run through the third act quick.
Get away from me.
Brophy gives Klein a look, goes to phone and dials.
Say, do you know what time it is? It's after 8 o'clock in the morning. It is? Gee, Mr. Brewster, them first 2 acts ran a little long, but I don't see anything we can leave out.
You can leave it all out. Who the hell is this guy? That's my brother. Oh, the one that ran away. Oh, so he came back. Yes, he came back.
Jonathan starts to stir.
This is Brophy. Get me Mac. I'd better let him know we found you. Joe, Mac, tell the lieutenant he can call off the big manhunt. We got him in the Brewster house.
Jonathan hears this and suddenly becomes very much awake, looking up to see Klein to the left of him and Brophy to his right.
Do you want us to bring him in? No, all right, we'll hold him here. The lieutenant's on his way over.
So, I've been turned in, eh?
Brophy and Klein look at him with some interest.
All right, you've got me.
Turning to Mortimer, who is on the balcony looking down.
And I suppose you and that stool pigeon brother of mine will split the reward.
Reward?
Instinctively, Klein and Brophy both grab Jonathan by an arm, dragging the cops.
Now I'll do some turning in. You think my aunts are sweet, charming old ladies, don't you? Well, there are 13 bodies buried in their cellar.
Teddy, Teddy, Teddy!
What the hell are you talking about?
You better be careful what you're saying about your aunts. They happen to be friends of ours.
I'll show you. I'll prove it to you. You come to the cellar with me.
What, wait a minute.
13 bodies. I'll show you where they're buried.
Oh, yeah?
You don't want to see what's down in the cellar?
Go on down to the cellar with him, Abe.
I'm not so sure I want to be down in the cellar with him. Look at that puss. He looks like Boris Karloff.
Jonathan, at the mention of Karloff, grabs Klein by the throat and starts choking him.
Hey, what the hell? Hey, Pat, get him off me!
Brophy takes out a rubber blackjack.
Here, what do you think you're doing?
He socks Jonathan on the head. Jonathan falls unconscious, face down. Klein, throwing Jonathan's weight to the floor, backs away, rubbing his throat.
Well, what do you know about that?
There is a knock on the door.
Come in.
Lieutenant Rooney bursts in, slamming door after him. He is in a very tough, driving, dominating officer. He is a very tough, driving, dominating officer.
What the hell are you men doing here? I told you I was going to handle this.
Well, sir, we were just about to,
Klein's eyes go to Jonathan, and Rooney sees him.
What happened? Did he put up a fight?
This ain't the guy that blows the bugle. This is his brother. He tried to kill Klein.
And all I said was he looked like Boris Karloff.
Turn him over.
The two cops turn Jonathan over on his back. Klein steps back, and Rooney crosses in front of Brophy to take a look at Jonathan. Brophy drifts to the right of Rooney. O'Hara is still at the foot of the stairs.
We kind of think he's wanted somewhere.
Oh, kind of think he's wanted somewhere. If you guys don't look at the circulars we hang up in the station, at least you could read True Detective. Certainly he's wanted. In Indiana. Escaped from the prison for the criminal insane. He's a lifer. For God's sake, that's how he was described. He looked like Karloff.
What? Was there a reward mentioned?
Yeah. And I'm claiming it.
He was trying to get us down in the cellar.
Yeah, he said there was 13 bodies buried down there.
13 bodies buried in the cellar. And that didn't tip you off? He came out of a nut house?
Well, I thought all along you talked kind of crazy.
Rooney sees O'Hara for the first time, turns to him.
Oh, it's Shakespeare. Where have you been all night? And you needn't bother to tell me.
Well, I've been right here, sir, writing a play with Mortimer Brewster.
Yeah? Well, you're gonna have plenty of time to write that play. You're suspended. Now get back and report it.
O'Hara takes his coat, nightstick, and cap from top of the desk, goes to the right door and opens it, then turns to Rooney.
Oh, can I come over sometime and use the station typewriter?
No. Get out of here.
O'Hara runs out. Rooney closes the door and turns to the cops. Teddy enters on balcony and comes downstairs unnoticed and stands at Rooney's back to the right of him.
Take that guy somewhere else and bring him to.
The cops bend down to pick up Jonathan.
See what you can find out about his accomplice.
The cops stand up again in a questioning attitude. Rooney explains.
The guy that helped him escape. He's wanted too. No wonder Brooklyn's in the shapes it's in, with the police force full of flatheads like you. Falling for that kind of story. 13 bodies in the cellar.
But there are 13 bodies in the cellar.
Who are you?
I'm President Roosevelt.
Rooney does a walk back on this, then comes down again.
What the hell is this?
Oh, he's the fellow that blows the bugle.
Good morning, Colonel.
They salute Teddy, who returns it. Rooney finds himself saluting Teddy also. He pulls his hand down in disgust.
Well, Colonel, you've blown your last bugle.
Seeing Jonathan on the floor.
Dear me, another yellow fever victim?
What?
All the bodies in the cellar are yellow fever victims.
Rooney crosses exasperatedly to the right door on this.
Oh, no, Colonel. This is a spy we caught in the White House.
Will you get that guy out of here?
Cops pick up Jonathan and drag him to the kitchen. Teddy follows them. Mortimer enters, comes downstairs.
If there's any questioning of spies, that's my department.
You keep out of this.
You're forgetting. As president, I am also head of the Secret Service.
Brophy and Klein exit with Jonathan into the kitchen. Teddy follows them briskly. Mortimer has come to the room.
Captain, I'm Mortimer Brewster.
You sure?
I'd like to talk to you about my brother Teddy, the one who blew the bugle.
Mr. Brewster, we ain't going to talk about that. He's got to be put away.
I quite agree with you. In fact, it's all arranged for. I had these commitment papers signed by Dr. Gilchrist, our family physician. Teddy has signed them himself, you see, and I've signed them as well as next of kin.
Where's he going?
Happy Dale.
All right, I don't care where he goes as long as he goes.
Oh, he's going to be all right. But I want you to know that everything that's happened around here, Teddy is responsible for. Now, those 13 bodies in the cellar.
Yeah, those 13 bodies in the cellar. It ain't enough that the neighbours are all afraid of him and is disturbing the peace with that bugled. But can you imagine what would happen if that cockeyed story about 13 bodies in the cellar got around? And now he's starting a yellow fever scare. Cute, ain't it?
13 bodies. Do you think anyone would believe that story?
Well, you can't tell. Some people are just dumb enough. You don't know what to believe sometimes. About a year ago, Crazy Guy starts a murder rumour in Greenpoint, and I had to dig half an acre lot just to prove that.
There's a knock on the door.
Will you excuse me?
He goes to the door and meets Elaine and Mr. Witherspoon, an elderly, tight-lipped disciplinarian. He's carrying a briefcase.
Good morning, Mortimer.
Good morning, dear.
This is Mr. Witherspoon. He's come to meet Teddy.
To meet Teddy?
Mr. Witherspoon's the superintendent of Happydale.
Oh, come right in.
They shake
This is
hands.
Captain...
Lieutenant Rooney, I'm glad you're here, Super, because you're taking him back with you today.
Today? I didn't know that.
Not today.
Look, Elaine, I've got a lot of business to attend to, so you run along home and I'll call you up.
Nuts.
She crosses to the window seat and sits.
I had no idea it was this immediate.
The papers are all signed. He goes today.
Teddy backs into room from kitchen, speaking sharply in the direction whence he's come.
Complete insubordination. You men will find out I'm no mollycoddle.
He slams door and comes to below table. When
the President of the United States is treated like that, what's this country coming to?
There's your man, Super.
Just a minute.
he crosses to Teddy.
Mr. President, I have good news for you. Your term of office is over.
Is this March the 4th?
Practically.
Let's see. Oh, now I go on my hunting trip to Africa. Well, I must get started immediately.
He starts across the room and almost bumps into Witherspoon. He looks at him, then steps back to Mortimer.
Is he trying to move into the White House before I moved out?
Who, Teddy?
Taft.
This isn't Mr. Taft, Teddy. This is Mr. Witherspoon. He's going to be your guide in Africa.
Bully, I'll bring down my equipment.
He crosses to stairs. Martha and Abby have entered on balcony during last speech and are coming downstairs.
When the safari comes, tell them to wait.
As he passes the aunts on his way to the landing, he shakes hands with each, without stopping his walk.
Goodbye, Aunt Abby. Goodbye, Aunt Martha. I'm on my way to Africa. Isn't it wonderful?
He has reached the landing.
Charge!
He charges up the stairs and off. The aunts are at the foot of the stairs.
Good morning, darlings.
Oh, we have visitors.
This is Lieutenant Rooney.
Oh, how do you do, Lieutenant? My, you don't look like the fuzz budget the policemen say you are.
Why, the lieutenant is here, you know, Teddy. Teddy blew his bugle again last night.
Yes, we're going to speak to Teddy about that.
It's a little more serious than that, Miss Brewster.
Easing aunts to Witherspoon, who is above table where he has opened his briefcase and extracted from some papers.
And you haven't met Mr. Witherspoon. He's the superintendent of Happydale.
Oh, Mr. Witherspoon, how do you do?
You've come to meet Teddy.
He's come to take him.
The aunts turn to Rooney questioningly.
Aunties, the police want Teddy to go there today.
Oh, no!
Not while we're alive.
I'm sorry, Miss Brewster, but it has to be done. The papers are all signed, and he's going along with the superintendent.
We won't permit it. We'll promise to take the bugle away from him.
We won't be separated from Teddy.
I'm sorry, ladies, but the law's the law. He's committed himself, and he's going.
Well, if he goes, we're going to.
Yes, you'll have to take us with him.
Well, why not?
Well, that's sweet of them to want to, but it's impossible. You see, we can't take sane people at Happydale.
Mr. Witherspoon, if you'll let us live there with Teddy, we'll see that Happydale is in our will, and for a very generous amount.
Well, the Lord knows we could use the money, but I'm afraid.
Now, let's be sensible about this, ladies. For instance, here I am wasting my morning. I've got serious work to do. You know, there are still murders to be solved in Brooklyn.
Yes. Oh, are there?
It ain't only his bugle blowing and the neighbours all afraid of him, but things would just get worse. Sooner or later, we'd be put to the trouble of digging up your cellar.
Our cellar?
Yeah. Your nephew's been telling around that there are 13 bodies in your cellar.
But there are 13 bodies in our cellar.
Rooney looks disgusted. Mortimer drifts quietly to the front of the cellar door.
If that's why you think Teddy has to go away, you come down to the cellar with us and we'll prove it to you.
Now there's one, Mr. Spinalzo, who doesn't belong there and who will have to leave. But the other 12 are our gentlemen.
I don't think the lieutenant wants to go down into the cellar. He was telling me the only last year he had to dig up half an acre lot, weren't you, Lieutenant?
That's right.
Oh, you wouldn't have to dig here. The graves are all marked. We put flowers on them every Sunday.
Flowers.
He steps up toward Abby, then turns to Witherspoon, indicating the aunts as he speaks.
Superintendent, don't you think you can find room for these ladies?
Well,
You come along with us and we'll show you the graves.
I'll take your word for it, lady. I'm a busy man. How about it, Super?
well, it'd have to be committed.
Teddy committed himself. Can't they commit themselves? Can't they sign the papers?
Why, certainly.
Sits in
Oh,
the
if we
chair of left table as Witherspoon draws out the paperwork for her. Oh no, draws out the chair.
if we can go with Teddy, we'll sign the papers. Where are they?
Yes, where are they?
Witherspoon opens briefcase for more papers. Klein enters from kitchen.
He's coming around, Lieutenant.
Good morning, Mr. Klein.
Good morning, Mr. Klein. Are you here too?
Ah, yes, Brophy and me have got your other nephew out in the kitchen.
Well, sign him up, Superintendent. I want to get this all cleaned up.
He crosses to the kitchen door, shaking his head as he exits.
13 bodies.
Klein follows him out. Mortimer is to the left of Abby, fountain pen in hand. Witherspoon is to the right of Martha, also with a pen.
If we sign right here,
And
Martha
you here,
signs.
Aunt Abby?
Abby signs.
I'm really looking forward to going. The neighborhood here has changed so.
Just think, a front lawn again.
Einstein enters through the arch and comes downstairs to the door, carrying a suitcase. He picks up his hat from the hall tree on the way down.
oh, we're overlooking something.
What?
Well, we're going to need the signature of a doctor.
Oh.
He sees Einstein about to disappear through the door.
Dr. Einstein, will you come over here? We'd like you to sign some papers.
Please, I must.
Just come right over, Doctor. At one time last night, I thought the doctor was going to operate on me. Just come right over, Doctor. Just sign right here, Doctor.
The doctor signs Abby's paper and Martha's paper. Rooney and Klein enter from the kitchen. Rooney crosses to desk and dials phone. Klein stands near the kitchen door.
Were you leaving, Doctor?
I think I must go.
Aren't you going to wait for Jonathan?
I don't think we're going to the same place.
Mortimer sees Elaine on window seat and crosses to her.
Hello, Elaine. I'm glad to see you. Stick around, huh?
Don't worry, I'm going to.
Mortimer stands at the back of Martha's chair. Rooney speaks into phone.
Hello, Mac. Rooney. We've picked up that guy that's wanted in Indiana. Now, there's a description of his accomplice. It's right on the desk there. Read it to me.
Einstein sees Rooney at the phone. He starts toward the kitchen and sees Klein standing there. He comes back to the right of the table and stands there dejectedly waiting for the pinch. Rooney repeats the description given to him over the phone, looking blankly at Einstein at the while.
Yeah, about 54, 5'6", 140 pounds, blue eyes, talks with a German accent, poses as a doctor. Thanks, Mac.
He hangs up as Witherspoon crosses to him with papers in hand.
It's all right, Lieutenant. The doctor here has just completed the signatures.
Rooney goes to Einstein and shakes his hand.
Thanks, Doc. You're really doing Brooklyn a service.
Rooney and Klein exit to the kitchen. Einstein stands amazed for a moment, then grabs up his hat and suitcase and disappears through the door. The aunts rise and cross over, looking out after him. Abby shuts the door and they stand there.
Mr. Brewster, you sign now as the next of kin.
The aunts
Oh,
whisper to each other as Mortimer signs.
Yes, of course. Right here?
That's fine.
That makes everything complete? Everything legal?
Oh, yeah.
Well, aunties, now you're safe.
When do you think you'll be ready to start?
Well, Mr. Witherspoon, why don't you go upstairs and tell Teddy just what he can take along?
Upstairs.
I'll show you.
Oh, no, Mortimer, you can stay here. We want to talk to you. Yes, Mr. Witherspoon, just upstairs and to the right.
Witherspoon puts his briefcase on the sofa and goes upstairs, the aunts keeping an eye on him while talking to Mortimer.
Well, Mortimer, now that we're moving, this house really is yours.
Yes, dear, we want you to live here now.
Oh, no, Aunt Abby. This house is too full of memories.
But you'll need a home when you and Elaine are married.
Oh, darlings, that's very indefinite.
No, it's nothing of the kind. We're going to be married right away.
Witherspoon has exited off the balcony.
Mortimer, we're really very worried about something.
Now, darlings, you're going to love it in Happydale.
Oh, yes, we're very happy about the whole thing. That's just it. We don't want anything to go wrong.
Will they investigate those signatures?
Oh, don't worry. They're not going to look up Dr. Einstein.
It's not his signature, dear. It's yours.
You see, you signed as next of kin.
Of course. Why not?
Well, dear, it's something we never wanted to tell you, but now you're a man, and it's something Elaine should know too. You see, dear, you're not really a Brewster.
Mortimer stares, as does Elaine.
Your mother came to us as a cook, and you were born about 3 months afterward. But she was a sweet woman, and such a good cook we didn't want to lose her, so brother married her.
I'm not really a Brewster.
Now, don't feel badly about it, dear.
And Elaine, it won't make any difference to you.
Elaine, did you hear? Do you understand? I'm a bastard!
Oh!
Elaine leaps into his arms. The two aunts watch them. Then Martha starts to the left a few steps.
Well, now I really must see about breakfast.
Mortimer's coming over to my house. Father's gone to Philadelphia, and Mortimer and I are going to have breakfast together.
Yes, I need some coffee. I've had quite a night.
In that case, I should think you'd want to get to bed, Mortimer. Oh, I'm sorry. You should want to get to bed.
I do.
They exit, closing the door. Witherspoon enters on balcony, carrying two canteens. He starts downstairs when Teddy enters carrying a large canoe panel. He is dressed in the Panama outfit with a pack on his back.
One moment, Witherspoon. Take this with you.
He exits off balcony again as Witherspoon comes on downstairs to the sofa. He puts canteens on sofa and leads Paddle against the wall. At the same time, Rooney and the two cops with Jonathan between them enter. The cops have twisters around Jonathan's wrists. Rooney enters first and crosses right. The other three stop left of the table. The aunts are to the right of the table.
We won't need the wagon. My car's out front.
Oh, you're leaving now, Jonathan?
Yeah, he's going back to Indiana. There's some people there want to take care of him for the rest of his life. Come on.
Rooney opens the door as the two cops and Jonathan cross to the right. Abby steps to the side after they pass.
Well, Jonathan, it's nice to know you have someplace to go.
We're leaving too.
Yes, we're going to Happy Dale.
Then this house is seeing the last of the Brewsters.
Unless Mortimer wants to live here.
I have a suggestion to make. Why don't you turn this property over to the church?
Oh, well, we never thought of that.
After all, it should be part of the cemetery. All right, get going. I'm a busy man. Goodbye, aunties. Well, I can't better my record now, but neither can you. At least I have that satisfaction. The score stands even, 12-12.
Jonathan and the cops exit as the aunts look out after them. Witherspoon crosses above to window seat and stands quietly looking out the window. His back is to the aunts, starting towards the door to close it.
Jonathan always was a mean boy. Never could stand to see anyone get ahead of him.
She closes the door.
I wish we could show him he wasn't so smart.
Her eyes fall on Witherspoon. She studies him. Martha turns from door and sees Abby's contemplation. Abby speaks sweetly.
Mr. Witherspoon, does your family live with you at Happy Dale?
I have no family.
Oh,
Well, I suppose you consider everyone at Happy Dale your family?
I'm afraid you don't quite understand. As head of the institution, I have to keep quite aloof.
that must make it very lonely for you.
It does, but my duty is my duty.
Well, Martha.
Martha takes her cue and goes to the sideboard for a bottle of wine. There's a bottle in the left cupboard. The bottle in the left cupboard is empty. She puts it back and takes out a full bottle from the right cupboard. She brings bottle and wine glass to the table. Abby continues talking.
If Mr. Witherspoon won't join us for breakfast, I think at least we should offer him a glass of elderberry wine.
Elderberry wine.
We make it ourselves.
Why, yes. Of course, at Happydale, our relationship will be more formal, but here...
He sits in the chair of the table as Martha pours the wine. Abby is beside Martha.
You don't see much elderberry wine nowadays. I thought I'd had my last glass of it.
Oh, no.
No.
Handing him the glass of wine.
No, here it is.
Witherspoon toasts the ladies and lifts the glass to his lips. The curtain falls before he does. For curtain call, it is suggested the 12 elderly gentlemen file out of the cellar entrance, stand in a line across the stage, and bow. The end. property plot. The property plot which follows is the exact copy that is used for the
All right,
original
all right,
production.
all right, all right.
Okay.
I was requested to do this. I
Yeah,
won't
well,
read
okay, that's
everything.
quite a
I'll just
detailed
finish the
diagram, yeah.
paragraph. It need hardly be said that a good many of the props here
Perhaps you'd like a
indicated
glass
are
of
not
elderberry
absolutely
wine?
essential. It has been brought wise to list everything. No,
I
the
thought
one
we were
on the
doing a
document.
sedan advertisement.
Okay, where's the advertisement?
That's for the after party, don't worry.
Okay.
The rap party.
Yay.
Well, we did it.
You'll have to show me where the ad is. I don't see where it is.
Well, should we do our signing off? Should we go down
Yes.
in the order on
Let's go
screen?
down the cast list.
So, who is first?
That's Cass.
Yeah, it's me. Thank you for being here and for seeing us do this play, and thank you to my wonderful castmates for making this incredibly fun to do and hilarious as hell.
Yes. Clap, clap, clap.
Hell yeah.
Woo!
Very good,
Woo,
evil
woo, woo.
guy. Very scary.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Hello, it's me, it's Cheese. I got to play Martha. This is so much fun, being a lovely, a dangerous dowager or something, you know. I'm glad to be back. I'm looking forward to more.
Yay. Clap, 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 clap.
Yeah. Woo, woo, woo.
Hello. We need to do it more, huh?
For real.
Like, it's fun every time, and then we don't do it for like a year. It's fine. um, it was a good one. I need to work on my accents. I don't know any of them.
No, it worked out. The vibe was so
It
good.
was
with
very,
Dr.
the vibe
Einstein.
was
I'm so glad he got
fantastic.
away.
Dasha.
Yeah. So it was fun.
Yay. Clap, 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 clap.
Too many happy
Yay.
turns.
Yay.
I am Nicola. I played Teddy and Mr. Gibbs. I am so happy that this play went as it was supposed to. Mostly, my social media are at this point. All of the handles are the same, or with the underscore at the end. Transient chaos. That's me. If you find me on the internet, that's me.
Yes. Clap, 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 clap. Incredible we had a president in this play.
Yeah, thank you for your service, Mr. President.
You're welcome. My throat hurts, and I am going to regret this tomorrow during D&D.
Oh dear.
You serviced so well. It's me, Akane. I got to play Mortimer's partner and Brophy's partner,
Yes.
and also
Together in every
Mortimer's other partner? Question mark. O'Hara. This was a delight. And what a cast and what a play. I'm so glad I didn't spoil myself on a single word of this beforehand. I was sitting here just like slack-jawed at the twists and turns. If you'd like, after the show, our post-show entertainment today can be found over at akane.zone/jellicalbot. Please enjoy such wonderful cat names as Seymour Sweeper, the unwritten cat, Paul Cat, the clammy cat, and Brighton Brent, the scintillating cat. That's it for me. Thank you.
Wow. Clap, clap, clap. Akane, wow.
Clap, 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 clap.
Yes.
Clap, 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 clap.
You were really partner maxing.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah. Hi, I'm Logan. I had a wonderful time playing Abby Brewster. I finally I have now surpassed my previous record body count for a character I've played in something. Very fun. Previously, it was Seymour. But yeah, no, this was so much fun. I've missed doing plays with these lovely folks here. And I'm hoping that we can make this more frequent from here. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah,
Very
thank
good
you all.
vibes.
Thank
Evil
you all
vibes.
for creating this opportunity, and thank you, Ray.
Oh my god, happy birthday.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday.
We'll get to Ray. in a
Happy
minute.
birthday!
We'll get to Ray. Yes.
We'll get to you, Ray. Okay,
Don't you worry.
We'll get to you, Ray.
that's a fine. No. Yes, Felix, I played Mortimer. He honestly just had a terrible night. Although, poor guy. And Brophy, of course. So much fun. I loved this play, and I loved the performances, and it was fun, and I love doing plays. Thank you, everyone. Yay.
Hell yeah! Woo 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 woo!
Hell yeah. Clap, 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 clap.
And I am Zephyr, and I was the narrator. And this was fantastic. I'm glad all of you enjoyed it all so much. Well, there's nothing really to say. I guess I'm sorry for saying sorry so many times. It's kind of. I'm a very apologetic person, and I know I should drop it in this circumstance, but, habits are habits. But
Yeah.
that's all.
You narrated exemplarily.
Yeah, you did so well, considering how different the narration parts in the script were also messed up in the second half. It's very
Yeah, it
good.
gets confusing because there's stage directions, and it's difficult to translate in your head. It's like, okay, I don't need to say that. I should say that. I don't need to say that. Do I need to say that? So
For our next production of Arsenic and Old Lace, we need to prepare a PowerPoint diagram, plotting the movement of the
Yes.
characters on the stage as we
Or
go.
animations, they just drift
Exactly,
around.
exactly.
Clap, 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 clap. Okay, last
Clap,
of all,
clap, clap.
we must all acknowledge Ray, whose excellent artwork we see
Yes.
is incredible. Thank you for hosting, Ray, and for doing
Yeah, and
various
whose excellent
organizations.
OBS session is making sure we can all watch the stream as well.
Yes. To vital functions, and also just organizing and setting things up.
Yes.
And typing part of the script. Also, thank you, Cheesable, for that.
Yes.
It's very good. Clap, 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 clap.
Clap, 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 clap.
All right.
hooray! Clap, clap, clap.
Hell yeah.
Until next time, I guess.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Until next time, indeed.